Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interest of our people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelele ilizwe letu na balobantu umisili ukulungu kwipondo letu. Unkose sikelele I Afrika kina abantwana bayo kukele inkokole zayo yiniki ukolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. You may be seated. Honorable members, I trust that members are familiar with the standing rules that govern our sittings, and I will refer members to the appropriate orders. I will now see the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move that notwithstanding the provisions of Rule 18, the hours of the sitting on Tuesday, 3rd June 2025 and Wednesday, 11th June 2025 shall be 10 until adjournment. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved? There is no objections. Agreed to. Honourable members, in terms of Rule 197, we will now proceed to interpellations as printed on the order paper, and I recognize the Minister for Local Government, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, who is online. Minister Bredell.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you for allowing me to be online. Thank you to the Honourable Bryant for the interpellation. Planning plays a pivotal role in ensuring a rapid, effective and coordinated response to any major emergency incidents that occurs. The Department of Local Government, through the Western Cape Disaster Management Centre, coordinates the planning efforts between provincial departments and municipalities in the Western Cape Province. For the current winter season, the Western Cape Disaster Management Centre commenced planning in February 2025, whereby local municipalities were requested to ensure the necessary planning is carried out and plans were duly submitted to the Western Cape Disaster Management Centre. These plans were collated and submitted to in turn to the National Disaster Management Centre. So we work as three spheres of government on the same plans and same responses. The Disaster Management Centre does have a preparedness, response and recovery plan which speaks to generic responses to incidents and emergencies which include a flood response. The National Department of Water Affairs and Forestry bears primarily responsibility in the case of riverine floods or dam management. Preparedness and response to urban flooding is the responsibility of local municipalities. Therefore, the City of Cape Town and municipalities have the necessary flood contingency plans in place, either forming part of their winter readiness plan or incorporated into their disaster management plans. Honourable Deputy Speaker, a disaster management learning program has been developed and is being rolled out to capacitate municipal officials in the various aspects of disaster management. These programs is in the form of 16 short courses, of which 5 have taken place. These courses are designed to provide officials with practical ways to implement disaster management in their municipalities. For example, in April, a short course was provided to 50 officials on early warning to teach the officials how to establish early warning mechanisms in their municipalities, and in June, a course on awareness and training will be facilitated to teach municipal officials how to develop and implement awareness and training programs in their communities. The provincial mitigation and preparedness measures include the following: early weather warning systems provided by the South Africa Weather Services, ensure flooding awareness and targeted information, and through this we help and safeguard our communities, because early warning systems allow us to go into communities and get them out of harm's way. Impact-based severe weather warnings received from South Africa Weather Services are also distributed to all our municipalities. Flood awareness material have been developed to educate communities about what to do before, during, and after a flood. A community resilience building training program has been developed. Partnering and financially support the National Sea Rescue Institute as well as Life Saving South Africa, partnering with NGOs and volunteer organizations such as SARZA, the Search and Rescue South
Minister,
Africa.
kindly conclude.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Chair. Funding were also distributed to Garden Route to help them with their swift response on water-related issues. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I see the Honourable Bryant.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for the response. Deputy Speaker, floods are a harsh reality in South Africa and in Cape Town in particular, in the Western Cape. And this is made worse by climate change and rapid urbanization. But while many parts of our country are caught off guard time and time again, the Western Cape stands out. Not because it doesn't flood, but because we know how to respond. Under DA leadership, the Western Cape has developed and implemented some of the most advanced flood mitigation strategies in the country. Municipalities like Cape Town invest in early warning systems, regular drain maintenance, and risk assessments long before disaster strikes. And when the floods do come, and we know they will come, the response is swift, it's coordinated, and it's transparent. So let's look at the 2024 storms as an example. Within hours, disaster management teams were deployed, shelters were opened, and affected communities were assisted. Roads were cleared, and communication with residents was constant and clear. Contrast that with other regions where people are often left to fend for themselves and infrastructure collapses without warning. All we have to do is remember the devastating floods in Durban and eThekwini and the impact that had due to failing municipal infrastructure that was already in place. One of the key reasons the Western Cape does better is because it takes our infrastructure seriously, whether it's upgrading stormwater systems, relocating vulnerable communities, or ensuring proper zoning laws are enforced. The focus is on long-term planning and not short-term fixes. More than anything, what sets the DA-led Western Cape apart is accountability. Budgets are used where they're meant to be used. And that's why we can defend our municipal budgets, even those of the city of Cape Town, because we know the money is going to be spent in the right places. There's oversight, there's delivery, and above all, in DA-led governments, there's political will. When the people at the top care more about service than slogans, results follow. And the Western Cape proves that. No government is perfect, Deputy Speaker, but when it comes to dealing with floods, the Western Cape shows what's possible when competence, planning, and leadership come together. If the rest of the country adopted even half of the Western Cape's approach, countless lives and livelihoods could be protected. And I thank the Minister for his response. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Bryant. I recognize the Honourable Stoffels.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Afternoon to the House and also to the people of the Western Cape. We are at this beginning of a brutal season of our people. Winter is here by now. We all have seen and felt the impact of it. We know it is going to get worse. And those who will be negatively affected expect this government to be able to be there at 8. We had heavy rains last year, 2024, in July. According to Western Cape Disaster Management, about 15,000 people have been affected. Thousands of homes were flooded in informal settlements across the Western Cape. Roads were closed, schools and clinics were damaged, and some areas were cut off by flooding. Families in Malema, Siahlala, and Graveyard Point, informal settlement in Philippi, had to be abandoned their homes and had to seek shelter with relatives. Even formal houses were affected by the rain. What are the preparations for informal settlement that are along the riverbank and wetlands? Beyond the winter readiness and beyond, what is the department long-term plan for flooding in informal settlements? Because it can be that you are always reactive. We know winter readiness is directly linked to human settlement, social development, and other departments that provide humanitarian support. Is there an interdepartmental plan that has been made for winter readiness? As the African National Congress, would love to see it and see where we are as the province in terms of the readiness. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Stoffels. I recognize the Honorable Petrus.
It will be my colleague, Speaker.
Dankie, achtbare Deputy Speaker. Goeiemiddag aan die huis. Speaker, met die winter wat voorlê, is dit noodsaaklik om die Wes-Kaapse se gereedheid vir die seisoen se uitdagings te bespreek. Die provinsie is bekend vir die vatbaarheid van ernstige winterstorms, oorstromings en die bykomende gevolge van beerdkrag. Die departement van plaaslike regering het meer as 10 miljoen rand toegeken vir die vermindering van rampsrisiko's hierdie winter. Hierdie fondse ondersteun noodreaksies, verpligtings, pogings en die voorsiening van tydelike skuiling vir geraakte gemeenskappe. Ook, Speaker, die installering van meer as 13,000 rookalarms in sulke nedersettings is lofwaardig, maar die breër kwessie van die beskerming van infrastruktuur is bekommerd. Verder het die departement aan die munisipaliteite voorsiening gemaak vir die aankoop van kragopwekkers om kontinuïteit van noodsaaklike water en riooldienste tydens beerdkrag te verseker. Die doeltreffendheid van hierdie kragopwekkers tydens langdurige beerdkragperiodes moet egter noukeurig gemonitor word. Gegee hierdie oorwegings, rig ek die volgende vraag aan die MEC. In informele nedersettings, watter spesifieke strategieë is in plek om die informele nedersettings teenoor oorstromings en brande hierdie winter te versterk en te beskerm? Infrastruktuurgereedheid, hoe beplan die departement om te verseker dat kragopwekkers en ander kritieke infrastruktuur langdurig beerdkrag kan weerstaan? Gemeenskapsbetrokkenheid, watter inisiatiewe word onderneem om gemeenskappe veral in hoë risiko gebiede op te voed en te betrek by die ramps voorbereiding en reaksies? Monitering en evaluering. Hoe gaan die departement die doeltreffendheid van sy wintergereedheidsmaatreëls evalueer en watter meganismes is in plek tydens hierdie gebeurtenisse?
Kindly conclude.
Agbare Speaker, ons kollektiewe verantwoordelikheid is om die inwoners van die Wes-Kaap, veral die kwesbares, te beskerm en doen 'n beroep op die minister om sodoende gemeenskappe te betrek by enige aktiwiteite. Dankie, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Constable. I recognize the Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I want to just ask the Minister two questions. Before I ask those two questions, let me just ask the following. I know the Minister and his team had a briefing in April 2025, and also to the South African Weather Service, there's a prediction that we will not have, we have less rain now than previous seasons. So that's why the planning is so important, because now you have rainfall, and after rainfall you have water shortages. So if the Minister can just elaborate what they are doing if we are receiving less the rainfall than previous years, and of course they're looking at previous seasons and you know, and then they determine the way going forward. But the other question I want to ask, and a very pertinent question, is I know last year also we were sitting with the Western Cape has applied to national government for funding to recover from past disasters. And that amount, I don't know, it ranged, I read it, when I read it, it ranged between 3.5 to 6 billion rand because of unprecedented disasters. So I want to ask the minister now, did they receive the money from national government? And what is he going to do? Because if there's disasters and they apply and you wait forever for the money, it of course affects services. So even that way, thinking forward, I would like the minister just to tell us what is his thinking around funding and applying to national. Is there other strategy they're going to use to get the money sooner rather than later? Because, you know, like we say, flooding and all of the things happen. We can be how prepared, but it happens, and you need the money at the end of the day. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Christians. I recognize the Honourable Bryant.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to all of the other speakers from the other parties. I think everybody shares the concern, particularly during this time for those people who are already struggling. Because when floods hit, they don't only damage roads and buildings, they devastate lives, especially the lives of the most vulnerable. And in South Africa, that often means people in rural areas, the poor and the homeless. But here in the Western Cape, we have shown that we do care, not just with our words, but also with action. The DA understands that rural communities in particular face unique challenges. Roads are very far apart, resources are stretched, and help can often feel a world away during a crisis, which is why in the Western Cape, our government's invested in strengthening disaster response in our rural municipalities, all the way from Mossel Bay to the Central Karoo. And we've seen some of those steps that have been taken in places like Beaufort West over time. Our local disaster teams are trained and equipped. Our agricultural support services are on standby to assist farmers whose land is flooded. And most importantly, communication lines stay open, because the early warnings that have been mentioned by member Christians and the fast responses in response to that can save lives and livelihoods. But I think it's important for us to pause for a second and just remember the homeless. In many cities, homeless are left out of disaster planning altogether. Cape Town, again, we're not perfect, but I know that the DA has introduced safe spaces, which do provide warm, secure shelters where people can go during storms in particular. And these aren't just places to sleep. They do offer meals, showers, social workers, and pathways to jobs and housing. So, Deputy Speaker, I think in summary, when the rains do come, the DA and the DA-led Western Cape government doesn't wait to react. We prepare, we respond, and we rebuild. And that's the difference real leadership makes. And it's the kind of leadership the Western Cape will continue to deliver under this Premier and Minister Bradell. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Bryant. I recognize the Honourable Minister.
Honourable Chair, Deputy Speaker, to my chairperson, thank you very much for this debate. It's a crucial debate. The accolades, we must also thank the whole of government approach. Yes, we do a planning. Yes, we coordinate and but with the repair and restore, even during disasters, I mean, infrastructure development, my colleagues in health, in safety, in social work, all step up and support the whole of government's system so that we can support the whole of our society, which is affected during any kind of disaster. We're not perfect. We understand that we want to do more. We keep on learning internationally from best practices. We keep on doing research, but obviously our budget is under pressure right through the country, and we all know that. So we need to understand that. As I sit here, I'm also very nervous because you never know what's going to hit you, and there people will criticize us, but we try our utmost best to support and to safeguard our families. obviously, the informal settlements is very close to our hearts. Therefore, we had the first of all the smoke alarm system because it affects. We've got a very good system in the rural areas to deal with fires, but the informal settlements, there people lose their lives or their livelihood, and it's very important to get them out of harm's way, and therefore the smoke alarm project is a very successful project. But then also with people staying, Honourable Stoffels, next to the rivers, the members of parliament must also help us. We need to move people into safe spaces. People in low-lying areas, they're going to be affected. And unfortunately, and we need to recognize the problems that was escalated through COVID, the immigration, the amount of informal settlements that just overwhelm the system at the end of the day. People live in dangerous areas, and to communicate with them is very difficult, and we need everybody's help to talk to those communities. Honourable, on the collectiewe responsibility, dit is so. Ek het dit voorheen gesê, ek kom van 'n munisipaliteit, ek ken die bekommernisse, ek ken die probleme in 'n munisipaliteit. Die winter lê voor en ja, ons beplan vir altyd vir die ergste en dan hoop ons dit gebeur nie. Ons het 10 miljoen rand gekry waarvoor ons baie dankbaar is. Maar ons is bekommerd oor ons informele areas en dit is 'n gesamentlike verantwoordelikheid wat op almal van ons se skouers lê, soos wat dit 'n gesamentlike verantwoordelikheid is om ons mense te beskerm, en ek dink dit is wat ons reg kry, dat departemente werk oor uit hulle silo's uit met mekaar om ons gemeenskappe te dien. So ons probeer met ons uitreikprogramme, gaan doen ons kursusse in ons gemeenskappe, behalwe met die munisipaliteite wat dit ook moet verder uitrol, gaan ons ook self in oop parke en ons gaan doen met studente opleiding oor brandgevare, oor hoe om jouself te beskerm met water, etc. Dit is die tipe inisiatiewe wat ons neem. Ons beplan met ander departemente, sodat ons nie oor mekaar se verantwoordelikhede werk nie, maar dat ons saam met mekaar werk. Ons evalueer gereeld die stelsel, ons nooi mense na die rampbestuursentrum toe, sodat gemeenskappe die stelsel verstaan aan die einde van die dag, en dit help ons dat mense regtig saamwerk, so ons is baie dankbaar, agbare Christians. Ons verwag 'n langer winter, of 'n later winter, wat beteken, daar kan meer water gelyk kom later, maar op hierdie stadium ons eintlik bekommerd oor die verlengde brandseisoen dan.
Kindly conclude, Minister.
Want ons moet ons hulpbronne geskuif het, en nou skielik het ons 'n baie langer brandseisoen. Ek is baie dankbaar vir die kapasiteit in ons stelsel, en ek vertrou dat ons 'n goeie seisoen sal hê. Baie dankie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We proceed to interpellation 2 as printed on the question paper. I recognize the Honourable Minister Simmers.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member Said for the question. In terms of the first part of the Honourable Member's question, no social housing units have been built on Morningstar farm number 141 in Philadelphia. The Honourable Member needs to understand that Morningstar farm number 141 is privately owned by Communicare. The land portion is currently zoned as agricultural and has no development rights in place. Furthermore, the land parcel currently falls within a discouraged development area in terms of the City of Cape Town's Municipal Spatial Development Framework. And therefore, the City of Cape Town will not provide the required bulk services to allow any form of development. In addition, the land parcel does not fall within a gazetted restructuring zone for the development of social housing. The second part of the Honourable Member's question is that my department has no plans to develop social housing on this land, as the land is not owned by the department, but by a private company, vis-à-vis Communicare. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Syed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Honourable MEC Simmers for the response, but also the Honourable leader of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, and I want to commiserate with him on the DA just losing Matsikama municipality just a few minutes ago. So commiserations. But I want to thank the
Order, members.
I want to congratulate our
Order,
partners,
members.
good, the
A member,
Patriotic
please
Alliance,
proceed.
the EFF, who have been worked closely together in taking this municipality. But I want to thank the MEC for confirming that for 54 years, not a single social housing unit has been built on Morningstar Farm number 141 in Philadelphia, despite over 500 hectares of land under the control of Communique. I hear his reasons, it doesn't make sense. A body meant to serve the public interest. Communique has been established to serve the public interest. Provincial government has a jurisdiction over Communique. The Western Cape government, and in particular MEC Simmers, has failed in its oversight mandate. This land could have been made it could have made a meaningful dent in the housing waiting list that now sits at over 600,000 families. Instead, the land remains barren while thousands remain homeless or live in undignified conditions. What is worse is that MEC Simmers has not demanded Communique's asset register to verify what was transferred to them after 1994. This is crucial to establish whether social housing stock has been illegally converted into private rental stock, because it says they're a private company, particularly under subsidies like Good Fine Properties. Why has the MEC's department not intervened? Where is the compliance with Section 26 of the Constitution, the right to adequate housing? If Communique has failed to deliver on its mandate, will the MEC support placing them under permanent administration? Because there is a forensic investigation underway currently, led by the National Department of Human Settlements. We demand accountability, we demand answers, and we demand action, because empty land and empty promises don't build homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Syed. I see the Honorable Vessels.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I must express my confusion regarding the purpose for this interpellation. Morningstar Farm 141 is privately owned land. The ANC knows that full well, that government cannot build on land that it does not legally own. To pretend otherwise is not just misleading, it is dishonest, and it raises false hope among desperate communities. This is not a matter of politics, but of legality and process. Sadly, Speaker, Mr. Syed and the colleagues seem far more interested in the political theatre than in practical solutions. Speaker, if the ANC truly wants to talk about housing delivery, perhaps it should start by explaining the complete failure of national government in places like District 6. Decades after promising restitution, hundreds of rightful claimants are still waiting. They're still waiting to return.
Order, members.
In 2021, the Western Cape High Court have even declared the national government's delays unconstitutional. Yet progress remains painfully slow. That said, Speaker, the DA understands the urgent need for affordable housing in areas like Philadelphia. That is why I asked, Minister, are there any current planned social housing
Members,
developments
order.
in or near Philadelphia? Thank you very much, Deputy.
Honorable members. Honorable members, are we able to maintain the decorum of the House? If you wish to speak, speak through the chair. I now recognize the Honorable Jacobs.
Thank you.
Order, members. Honorable Jacobs, you may proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Greetings to all. I greet you all in the name of the Most High. Speaker, today we speak about communique and we speak about land that communique have. But the land in Morning Star, today we can see that communique is one of the modern day mafia companies, and the Western Cape government find it's in order and allow them to exploit our elderly pensioners. I had a meeting with the communique management not long ago, and we were told they cannot build houses there. They first need to establish a human settlement environment. But the My City passes there, Tableview and Melkville lays just next to it. What would stop the department from building houses there and to alleviate the housing crisis that we have within the Western Cape? Speaker, as we speak, the residents of Reitawag and Brooklyn are fighting battles in court to avoid evictions by communique. Why they selling off land and rental stock to investors and developers? Why can't the department make use of the land? Speaker, as the NCC, we therefore are very concerned that the Department of Infrastructure will fail again to push communique to build houses and to develop residential infrastructure in Morningstar. Speaker, we see that the Western Cape, the land of the Khoi and the Sun, and the land of our colored mothers and fathers are systematically being sold to those thinking that the Western Cape is a safe haven. My question is, why don't the department take the land without compensation? This land lies barren, while people is increasingly becoming backward dwellers and homeless, and the Department of Infrastructure sends back an unspent fund for 2023-2024. The department must give surety that when there's houses building in Morningstar, it must go to the intended beneficiaries, the colored people of the Western Cape. It is very important for the department to take action against communique because that land don't belong to communique. It belonged to the people that it was stolen from. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. I recognize the Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I did quite a bit of research when I wanted to look at Farm 141 in Philadelphia, Morning Star. It was very difficult to get some information there, and it seems to me some of the members do have information from this farm. But let me just say a couple of things. Maybe, Deputy Speaker, some of our members must be coached to what social housing is, who's the beneficiaries. And when I looked at the list of properties and projects of communique, I would have thought that if you are informed, you will take the department to task to say, listen, this is an area for housing development and nothing is happening. But now we are discussing a farm that does not belong to government. We are discussing a farm that is not for social housing. So we all know there's a need for housing. We all know it's a desperate need, but the right procedure will be to look at where there is housing developments. Where did the department fail? Where did they not execute the mandate? But to take Farm 141 and make that a political issue is unacceptable. We cannot politically grandstand. Let's get the issues right. Housing is a problem, but let's keep the minister and the department accountable, not to come with private land that belongs to communique and that we can get nothing out of it. So, Deputy Speaker, I think the question is wrongly worded. I think if it was better worded, the department and minister could have given us a better reply to say where is the problems we are facing and what is he doing. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. Honorable members, if I'm able to remind members that political parties have duly allocated members to speak on various topics. I will trust that members will afford other members the respect when they are ultimately giving their input, as each party is adequately represented to give input. I now see the Honorable Syed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. And let me firstly start by thanking the Honorable Christians for yet again amplifying the role that he plays as the SCOPA chair, but the SCOPA chair was biased, biased in favor of the executive. And now we know the real reasons as to why he was given the SCOPA chairmanship. So just on that note, let me also thank the Honorable Jacobs from the NCC, really, for highlighting a case,
Honorable
key
Syed,
case study. Thank you. I think I'll, yeah.
are you able to take your seat?
Honorable
Honorable Chief
Deputy
Whip?
Speaker, I rise on Rule 59, which the former Deputy Chief Whip of the ANC that was demoted to ceremonial leader of the opposition knows he violated. He cannot reflect negatively on the integrity of our Honorable SCOPA chair by calling him biased, especially when his members sit in those SCOPA meetings.
Honorable members, we have rules that govern our sittings. I will request that members refrain from any comments that will impugn on the dignity of another member. So, Member Syed, I trust that you will continue in that particular fashion.
So I want to thank the Honorable Jacobs. I think he's underlined a clear case as to where expropriation can take place. So social housing is not for profit. You must remember that. It's for the people. And yet under the watch of this government, we see allegations that Communicare has offered incentive income. It has offered incentives to low-income tenants to vacate units. I've met with those tenants personally, only to convert these into private stock through a for-profit subsidiary known as Good Fine Properties. Now, this flies in the face of the Companies Act, the Social Housing Act, and common decency. I would like to ask the MEC, did Communicare transfer state-funded social housing to its subsidiaries? And because he wants to run away from responsibility. Member Wessels wants to absolve the MEC and government, but yet state-funded social housing to its subsidiaries without SHRA approval. If so, where were the tenants moved to? Who authorized this? And what has the MEC done? The ANC demands a forensic audit of all state funding received by Communicare since 1997. We want to know how many properties were funded with public money, how many have been transferred into private hands, and how this government let it happen. And let us be clear, Communicare only applied for SHRA accreditation in 2010. So how did they continue to receive public funding before that? MEC Simmers, enough evasion. He needs to act now, or will he remain complicit in the privatization of our people's homes?
Thank you, Honorable Syed. I recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thank you to all the various members for the comments and questions. But I think I just need to reiterate, and again, there's social housing, which is a rental only option. The Honorable Member Said referred to the Social Housing Regulatory Act, which defines what social housing is. But seemingly the African National Congress and the NCC seeks to confuse social housing, which is a rental program, against the BNG program, which is an ownership model through which the transfer of a subsidy vis-a-vis through a housing opportunity into a title deed happens. Maar niks verstom my eintlik wat ek nog tans gehoor het nie, agbare Deputy Speaker. We need to understand, and the member asks, why I do not act, and he alleges that I am failing in my oversight. I need to make the member clearly understand. Communicare is a social housing institute. He himself has just said they registered in 2010 as an SHI. The body tasked with accreditation and oversight vests in the Social Housing Regulatory Authority, or SHRA as it's now commonly called. This is an entity of the National Department of Human Settlements. Hence, again, the member is actually answering himself. The National Department of Human Settlements, as he rightfully says, initiated a forensic investigation. But honorable members of the House, you need to understand, as province, we concur with what is a restructuring zone that is gazetted, as I highlighted in my original response to the honorable member. The national minister signs on that, and social housing development, which is the rental option. I need to re-emphasize, just so that the members do not confuse this again. Social housing, which is a rental option, is only allowed in gazetted restructuring zones. And that gazette, I can avail to the honorable members to fully understand which areas are earmarked for future expansion in terms of social housing. So I'm not running away, honorable member. The law, the act prescribes who is responsible for oversight and who is responsible to ensure that the SHIs carry out their mandate. But we are all well aware that the SH or the social housing sector is experiencing massive financial constraints, which is a matter which is due to be discussed at MINMIC. We also further need to understand, honorable members, that because of the zoning, we need to respect the role of local government, in this case, the city of Cape Town. I need to reiterate that farm number 141, not only just being a privately owned piece of land, also falls outside the urban edge for development in terms of housing opportunities, because it's classified as a discouraged development area, given that its current zoning is agriculture. Then, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the closest project in terms of human settlements development, which is funded through the Human Settlements Development Grant between my department and the City of Cape Town, is the Versantekraal Housing Project in Durbanville, which is currently at implementation stage. And we need to understand, and all members need to understand, human settlements and the implementation of the BNG program does not focus on a ward-based approach, but on how to effectively, through various programs, integrate various communities, and it speaks through that mandate by developing projects such as the Versantekraal project in Durbanville to address the housing waiting log in terms of the date of application. And that's something the ANC and the NCC needs to understand. And I so wish these members actually attend the Standing Committee of Infrastructure to fully understand, but I'm quite willing to afford them a vinnige blitzcursus if I had more time, because this is why people are invading land, because of such utterances without being equipped with the knowledge of what is developable and what is not, what is within a development
Please
zone and what is
conclude,
not.
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We now proceed to interpellation 3 as printed on the question paper. I recognize the Premier.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you very much to the Honourable Member Heron for the question. Question 1, one. The Department of Infrastructure informed me that they have not been approached and therefore have not participated in the activities of the joint team. Then 2, the applications received, responses and progress as informed by the information received from the Department of Infrastructure are detailed in the table below. I'll take you through it. As of 2023, there are 7. The first one is 43 Fazika Street, Guguletu. It's the applicant is the Housing Assembly Barcelona Community, and I've got all of the detail which we'll obviously send to you, but it's the earth size, etc., and the progress to date. The property or the portion, therefore, has not been relinquished by the WCED because the allocation is a WCED property and under the control of the WCED and the SGB for the portion that has been requested to be relinquished. Then also in August 2023, this is the Sialala community. This is adjacent to the Nomsa Mapongwana Primary School. It is in Khayelitsha, also a WCED property and SGB managed. And the same is we are still waiting for the relinquishment. The 2023 August as well, this is the third one. This is in Dabano. This is also in Khayelitsha, also WCED property, exactly the same thing. Then number 4, Social Justice Coalition, the community of the Bani Malukeni section. This is in Fora Road. This is the property is unlawfully occupied and is still so. So that is an issue that has to be dealt with. Then also, this is number 5, the Housing Assembly of Barcelona community. This is Atwood Road in Newfields. Here, this is also the same as the other, is the WCED and the SGB. Then on number 6 is the Housing Assembly of Parkwood. This is in Plantation Road, also WCED and the governing body. Then the number 7 is Reclaim the City. This is number 1 Beach Road. The property is unlawfully occupied. That is the blockage at the moment. Then in 2024, there are 6 applications. The first one is Singa Balafa. This is in Oranjezicht. The properties have been identified for the purposes and are not surplus to government needs. That's obviously the holdup. Then in Itlungu, this is also in Khayelitsha. The property is a WCED SGB issue. Then in IYM, this is also in Khayelitsha. Also again, a WCED property that is being applied for. Then the 4th one is Reclaim the City. This is in Sea Point, Milne and Herbert Road. This is IRF 1675 Sea Point and is not a standalone cadastral property and forms part of IRF 1424 Sea Point East, which is not surplus to the government needs. Then the 5th one, Kraaifontein Community, Old Paul Road, Bloekom Bos. This property is unlawfully occupied at the moment, and that is the holdup. Then 6, the Housing Assembly.
Please conclude, Premier.
And this property is not surplus to government requirements.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. I recognize the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Premier for the answers. With regards to the first question, in April 2024, the President, in reply to a question in the National Assembly, indicated that he would establish a joint team with Department of Public Works, or the Minister of Public Works, Minister of Human Settlements. That team has been established, I'm informed, led by the HDA. Public Works, National Public Works is participating, National Human Settlements is participating, City of Cape Town is participating, but apparently the provincial government is not. So if there's a breakdown in communication that they haven't been invited, then we need, I think, as a government to fix it. And if I can help, I will certainly do that, because it's important that the province is part of those discussions. Moving on, Deputy Speaker, obviously WCED land is still public land, and if it's not being used for WCED purposes, then we must consider it for release or for other purposes. And a week ago, in this House, I welcomed the 353 on Main or Tafelberg site project. It is an important moment because it proves that public land can serve the public good, and that affordable housing in well-located areas is not a dream, and it is entirely possible. But it also proves something else, Deputy Speaker, that progress only happens, it seems, when communities fight for it. Because the project wasn't a gift, it was a result of tireless organizing, legal battles, and public pressure. And that's why I stand here again today, not just to acknowledge what was done, but to ask, why is this the exception and not the norm? Across this province, thousands of people live on publicly owned land in informal settlements that have existed for years. In 2024, this government managed to upgrade just one informal settlement, only one. So this is not a capacity crisis, it is really a crisis of political will. There are currently, as I'm informed, 14 applications under the State Land Disposal Act. 5 of these relate to land currently occupied, not invaded last week, but settled on for years and years and years. There's IRF 59787 in Khayelitsha, where nearly 3,500 people are living, mostly women-led households, and have lived on that land since 2020. The land was empty, it was unused, and it offered real potential for formalization and development. The application was denied, and the official reason given was it belongs to the Education Department and it's not surplus. But let's be honest, if that land has not been occupied for years, with no plans for development, is it really surplus? And if this government has no capacity to upgrade at scale, and we've seen they can only do one informal settlement upgrade a year, then surely the answer is to transfer ownership to the people already living there through a trust or community-owned entity so that they can build their own future. This government loves to say the communities must take ownership or work in partnership with this government, and here's a chance to show that you actually mean it. To step aside, to allow communities to formalize, to secure tenure and
Please
begin
conclude,
development,
member.
because this government clearly isn't keeping up. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Heron. I recognize the Honorable Van Minnen.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Despite the establishment of the President's joint committees, and they are myriad, like those tasked with addressing challenges in the Johannesburg inner city and the national energy crisis, tangible outcomes remain extremely limited. The Johannesburg inner city continues to fall far short of its potential, posing significant risks to an already struggling urban economy. Meanwhile, Eskom's ongoing constraints appear to hinder the development and integration of green energy solutions. The so-called joint committee set up to deal with municipal debts to Eskom has also failed for half a decade to make any difference at all, and has not, to the best of my knowledge, ever met. Notably, the City of Cape Town, acting independently of such a committee, has made substantial progress, including the release of land capable of accommodating over 12,000 housing units, underpinning a clear strategy and implementation plan, and which the Premier has discussed in this House last week and now 5 minutes ago as well. Efforts to develop affordable housing in well-located areas often encounter excessive legal and procedural obstacles. Examples such as the prolonged occupation of the Helen Bowden Nurses' Home and the Woodstock Hospital have significantly delayed progress in delivering inner-city housing and continue to delay such implementation. As we have already seen today, the truth is that the ANC and their sidekicks refuse to abide by the rule of law, refuse to understand the rule of law, or simply want a grandstand, in which case may I rather suggest a TikTok account. Furthermore, Deputy Speaker, with Member Said now railing against the privatization of people's homes, may I remind him that this is actually ANC policy because Title deed delivery is in fact a national indicator of delivery, so they might be surprised by his view. In light of these developments, is the Premier of the view that a joint committee of this nature can realistically resolve the housing crisis, given the limited outcomes thus far and the complex legal and administrative challenges involved? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van Minnen. I recognize the Honorable Lekker.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, it is a known fact that in January 2025, the Western Cape government used part of the contested Tafelberg site in Sea Point for affordable housing. MEC of Infrastructure, Simas, outlined plans for the site, and part of the site would be used for services and part for affordable housing. Can the MEC share those plans with us? And our fear comes from noticing that the patterns of unspent grant allocation are very much open for us, everyone to see. For the Urban Settlement Development Grant, USDG, the City of Cape Town is allocated 1.4 billion for the 2024-25 financial year. In addition to the approved rollover of 56 million, the total available funds increased to 1.148 billion after the reallocation of 50 million by National Treasury. And as of 28 February 2025, 1.041 billion has been transferred to the Metro with reported expenditure of 578 million, which is equivalent to 56% of the transferred funds and 50% of total available funds for the informal settlement upgrading partnership grant. The Metro is allocated 592.9 million for the 2024-25 financial year. As at February, 409.5 million has been transferred with 166 million spent, which is then equivalent to 40% of the transferred funds and 29 of the total available funds. And therefore, maybe we should ask, what is the update of the unspent monies that has been allocated? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Lekker. I see and recognize the Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I think this is a valid question asked by the Honorable Heron. You know, you drive through the city and you drive through certain areas and you see the unlawful occupation of land. And I understand sometimes the people's frustration. And when you talk to some of them, you know, they will tell you that they've been on the waiting list or some of the people is unemployed. There's a lot of, interacting with them, a lot of different things they say. But I want to ask the Premier maybe just the question. Premier, do you think if all spheres of government are working together, that it will assist by looking at least, land that is public land under the Western Cape government, that those land and other land, city land and even national land that's in the Western Cape, if all spheres of government work together, will that make the process going easier than at the moment it is going? That is an important question because sometimes, like I always say, people don't understand. Many of the people don't understand the different spheres of government. They're not interested if it belongs to national government, provincial government, or local government. All they want is affordable, suitable housing. They want to be housed. And now that we are facing again the rainy season, it's just going to be a massive, massive problem. So, Premier, do you think it will assist if you joined this committee and see how you can resolve, these people that are frustrated out in the cold, wanting just a roof over their heads? So I don't agree with illegal occupation. I don't agree. ACDB don't agree with that. And proper procedures must be followed. But we also look at the frustration of people and how do we short circuit all these red tape to make sure that people are housed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. I recognize the Honorable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think just to respond to Honourable Van Minen's comments, here is a committee that is actually apparently functioning, and the only difficulty is that the provincial government is not present. But we've heard from the Premier that the provincial government has not been invited, and that must obviously be dealt with because the Minister of Public Works has already made a public commitment to using public land for public purposes. But Deputy Speaker, let's continue and maybe consider that occupation is not necessarily a barrier, and it could also be an opportunity, a starting point for land reform. So the question isn't just why the province isn't acting, but why is the province standing in the way? I've already raised the issue of 5 parcels of land currently occupied by desperate communities, land this government refuses to release, using occupation itself as justification for inaction. Now I want to speak about the 9 remaining sites. They are not occupied, they are not in use, they are vacant, underutilized, and in some cases decaying, yet every application for their release has been denied. Civil groups such as NU and IYM have made the legal case, the moral case, the developmental case, but the province hides behind technicalities like it's not surplus, it's reserved for future plans, it's not feasible. These are not reasons, these are really excuses for paralysis. We're told the government wants to work with communities, but at every turn, it appears that they block the very actions that would empower them. This is not land reform, and this is stagnation. And in a city battling housing backlogs, mass displacement, and ongoing legacy of apartheid planning, stagnation is not neutral. It's a choice. It's a choice to protect the status quo. Even without the Disposal of State Land Act, the Premier still has the powers and responsibility to dispose of provincial land, including through donation, under the Western Cape Land Administration Act. The law provides the tools. What seems to be missing is the will. If the province cannot deliver upgrades at scale and the 2023 and 2024 numbers shows that it cannot, then it must consider innovative solutions like donating occupied land to community trusts, like partnering with those already living on the land to build viable, dignified futures. It's time to stop pretending that these proposals are radical. What is radical is letting public land lie idle while people live without secure tenure, without water, without electricity, or without safety. One successful project is not enough, Deputy Speaker. It's time to hand over the other sites. If 353 on Main was possible, so are the others. And we don't need performance of reform. We need real redistributive action. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Heron. I recognize the Premier.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. And once again, thank you to those that took part in this mini debate. I think I'll start with the Honourable van Minnen. You know, you mentioned Helen Bowden and Woodstock Hospital. In other words, illegal occupations. And I'll come to that because I think the Honourable Heron also mentioned, you know, occupation is a means to an end. And we need to really talk about that quite seriously. And the real thing, you know, I really do hope that a joint working group does work. I hope it really does get traction and starts to bring about change. And it's quite sad if we have been left out and not invited. I mean, that really is unacceptable. But when I look at, you know, the other cities and they're streaking ahead and really sorting it out, I say to myself, wow. But it's actually not the case. It's exactly the opposite. I also think that the Honourable Lecker, when she says, will the MEC please share the info, I would suggest that perhaps she attend these open public sessions, especially on that piece of land. The Honourable Heron was referring to it. He went along to those open sessions, and I thank him because he did recognise what we are trying to do there, and you know, he said that he welcomed it. The Honourable Christians as well. You know, obviously, it makes sense to try and find each other, work together. But that's when we need to also have honesty and integrity in the system to say, well, if you weren't invited, who picked up the phone and said, you're not here, you're not talking about it, please make sure that we get along, that we are joined up in this process. But then I must come back to the Honourable Heron. And, you know, we were dealing with a very similar question 2 weeks ago. I was wondering whether he was going to verge on the edge of illegal occupation, which was much of the debate in the last time we gathered. But he said it. Occupation is a means to an end. And of course, there are legal occupations, and we've got to find a way in which to deal with it. I think his political party was very much involved in an illegal occupation of a place called Knoflokskraal. And it is a huge conundrum of how we are supposed to deal with it. There are cases lodged with the police where people were selling some of this land. And there was a definite political lens to what was happening there. That cannot be the means to finding legitimate ownership and a legitimate process. We've got to run through the rule of law and legitimacy. But I must say that luckily I brought my folder yesterday from what was launched by Minister Simmers and our infrastructure minister, and we have got a 2050 infrastructure strategy. We've got a infrastructure framework 2050, and we've got the infrastructure implementation plan. And if I pull out of this document and specifically the identification of property that we want to take to the next level, and thinking about what happens in other metros at the moment via this joint meeting, this is actually how you start to move forward. Now, he's welcomed the Tafelberg site. We've already seen the launch of the Leo Loop site. That's just short of R1 billion property. We've got the Founders Garden site. That's R2.25 billion worth of property, also right in the middle of the center. There's the Oudtshoorn precinct, which is now in process at the moment. That's another R2.5 billion worth of development. There's the Sundrift mixed housing development that's in the planning stage. These are in evaluation.
Kindly
The
conclude.
Stickland space in evaluation. There are a hang of a lot of pieces that this department is busy with in those processes of delivering exactly what the honourable member is talking about.
Honourable members, that is the end of interpellations. We will proceed in terms of Rule 202. And I wish to advise honourable members that once the Honourable Premier or Minister has started a reply to the oral question as printed on the question paper, or honourable members must use the chat facility that is online, or or raise their hand within this particular precinct. There are 4 opportunities for follow-up questions, and the honourable member who posed the initial question as printed on the oral question paper will have the first opportunity for follow-up. Thereafter, other honourable members may use the remaining opportunities. I see the Honourable Premier.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Just want to double check that I am answering the first question. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. And so to the Honourable Kasim, which I presume she's online, thank you very much for your question. Question 1, or the 2 parts of the question. The first part, whether the members of the executive have been or subject to lifestyle audits in their capacity as provincial ministers. If not, why not? If so, what are the relevant details? So the answer to 1 is yes. But perhaps if I can flesh out with regard to this question, because I think it's a really pertinent question. I think in a country like ours, which is plagued by corruption, it has been so for decades, lifestyle audits are a tool in the fight against corruption. And if we are to restore public trust in elected representatives, we've got to make sure that we put these kind of mechanisms in place. This is an assertion that I feel very strongly about, but also one in which has been echoed by the President on numerous occasions in recent years. However, in many parts of our country, the follow-through has not been reflected or in the statement of intent. It's not actually happening, and that's really terrible. I mean, we're being asked this question here. We need to make sure, and I'm pretty certain the Honourable Member's party is going to be asking the same questions in all legislatures, and exactly the same thing at a national level. And to the best of my knowledge, Deputy Speaker, the President first raised this about lifestyle audits of the National Cabinet in 2018. And it has been repeated since then a few times, and that audits were underway, etc. But we have not heard any finality on lifestyle audits. In many of our South African provinces, we see the same story play out. Both David Makura and Premier Lesufi said exactly the same thing, lifestyle audits of the Gauteng cabinet, and I'm not aware that any of those cabinets have had lifestyle audits. Earlier this month, we were told that 37% of senior officials in the Gauteng provincial government have failed their lifestyle audits. Imagine running a government where nearly 4 out of every 10 senior officials are subject to suspicion of unethical entrenchment. In other provinces, the story is the same or worse. The ANC promised lifestyle audits in KZN in 2020, and to my knowledge, nothing has happened there. In the Free State, lifestyle audits were announced in 2022 and said to be underway in 2023, but I've not seen any results there either. And of course, in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Northwest, it seems to be no effort either, and not even a cursory one, or a premier saying something about it. And while the lack of a lifestyle audit does not automatically mean someone is guilty of wrongdoing, they must also note that there are many senior government officials and elected representatives in our country who live in mansions, drive luxurious cars, and live off a diet of only the most expensive food and drink, all while earning taxpayer-funded salaries. And one wonders where the gap is and how that is funded. In the Western Cape, things are different. As the members are likely to be aware, I commissioned lifestyle audits of members of my cabinet when I first became the Premier in 2019, and I repeated the process as we transitioned to the new parliamentary term last year. When I last answered a question on this matter in the House, lifestyle audits had been completed on all provincial ministers aside from the 3 newly appointed members of the cabinet. I have been informed that these audits are completed, were completed last year, and that lifestyle audits of all current members of the executive serving as provincial ministers, as well as their spouses and life partners, were conducted and concluded in 2024. The scope of the lifestyle audits were to analyze and verify financial and other relevant information to provide an opinion on whether the individual's lifestyle is commensurate with his or her income. The audits also sought to determine whether any such income or any interest held could cause a possible conflict in his or her role as a cabinet member. The information analyzed includes the following: total income and source of funds of the individual, large and or significant expenditure transactions and funding thereof, business interests and resultant dividends, profits, distribution, or of any other related income, personal investments and resultant interests, including shares and or bonds, assets of the individual, liabilities of the individual, declaration of any transfer of assets to family members, family trusts and other persons or entities, credit information, income tax compliance and disclosure, foreign travel, hospitality, and any other benefits of a material nature, verification of the highest qualification. The audits did not identify any potential conflicts of interest. Lifestyles were found to be commensurate with the incomes where income or remuneration was earned. In short, no member of this cabinet has been found to live above or beyond their means or to have unduly enriched themselves. The Western Cape has a hard-won reputation as a province that is vastly less corrupt than any other of national government, and we intend to do everything we can to uphold this reputation and to ensure that there is a full transparency and accountability of how taxpayers' money is spent in the Western Cape. 2, lifestyle audits of the provincial cabinet and of the 7th administration have already been completed, and please refer to what I have noted above. And perhaps just the last point, what we do as a practice, you have a lifestyle audit at the beginning of your term, and then at the end of the term, your lifestyle audit is done again to see if anything during that term is raised, from your income versus your assets and liabilities that might raise any flag. And then, of course, as I said, if there are new members, then they would actually start the process. But again, the full cabinet would have lifestyle audits at the end of this term again. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Kasim.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you to the Premier for that response. I just wanted to check for both the previous and the new term, what is the process of appointing the service providers to conduct these audits, and then whether the final outcome report of the executive member, including yourself, Premier, will it be made public? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that follow-up. So first of all, it is put out to tender, and it's obviously put out to tender across South Africa. I must say, at the end of the day, when the tender was awarded, it actually ended up with a company called Nexus out of Gauteng. And in actual fact, I was quite happy. You normally want to offer these kind of contracts to local companies, but I thought it was actually quite good that it was outside of our province. So that in itself means there was less of a conflict or possibility of a conflict, between the service provider coming from our province. And then you don't make lifestyle audits public. In actual fact, the lifestyle audit outcome is not even given to me. What happens is at the end of the lifestyle audit, the responsible auditor then signs off in their opinion on that specific audit, they then would raise a flag. If there's a flag to be raised, that would then be raised with me, because then I need to deal with that flag. And then we need to then obviously call in that member. We need to interrogate what that flag is. There's an anomaly. You say that you don't own a Ferrari, but there's a Ferrari in your garage. What's going on? Where did you get it? And that would then be raised. That get triggered. And from the trigger, a few things could happen. A charge could be laid, a dismissal, etc. But that is what happens in the audit outcome. All of those audits are then completed, put under lock and key, and that is kept in the HR component in our government, so that if there would be a charge laid in a court of law, that audit could be called or for evidence, etc. But it is only triggered once there is a problem identified in the process, and that would receive investigation, an investigation, and none of the triggers were triggered. And then, of course, it is not made public to, lifestyle audits are never made public to the public. You wouldn't want to go into that depth. But of course, if the honourable member wants to see what the asset base is of any member, the best place to do is go and have a look at our register of interests. It is all there. And when a lifestyle audit is done, they look at what they find in your bank account or any of the other investigations, and they actually look at what we declare as public representatives to see if there's also an anomaly there. So pretty much if the member wanted to see what was asset bases and any other income declared by any of the members in this cabinet, it will be in our members' interests. And the reason I can quite confidently say go and have a look there, because that's where it's able to be public, or parts of it are public. Of course, if there was an anomaly, it would have been raised with me to say the member who's declared their interests is different to what we're picking up in the investigation.
I recognize the Honourable Van Minnen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Considering the allegations against the EFF leader Julius Malema and his apparent links to Adriana Mazzotti and the VBS scandal, I want to ask through the Speaker how important it is that lifestyle audits are sufficiently comprehensive of not only the subjects thereof, but their families as well. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. And that is a really good question, which the honourable member who posed this question would be interesting to see what she would say if I could reverse the questioning to say to the questioner, can you answer that question? Because it would be asking exactly the same question of her leader. And of course, we know all sorts of investigations happening. And perhaps that is also a pertinent question around political leadership and whether elected members of parliament should also be subjected to lifestyle audits, especially if they are in any position, way, or could hold any sway as a political leader over perhaps areas where their party is in government in any way. Because one would wonder, but of course, not of all of it in the question that's just been asked is directly linked to a party political leader who perhaps has levers within a power position because they don't hold those positions of power as in a mayor or a minister or a maker member, etc. But of course, corruption is corruption. And we need to find whatever means possible of investigating it, especially if you're a person that stands up in front of a judge when you get elected to the start of your political term and you swear allegiance to our Constitution, as every one of us did as members of this House, and of course, as members of the National Assembly as well.
I recognize the Honourable Hiran.
Deputy Speaker, and obviously, Deputy Speaker, we welcome the lifestyle audit and the various components of it that the Premier shared with us. But I wonder if the Premier could share with us what criteria or considerations he used in selecting the members of the executive from the governing party's caucus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really don't think that is the kind of question you need to, or that I'm going to answer in a lifestyle audit space. But perhaps we are going to get to the next question, which starts to deal with how ministers are reported on. But I think that that is not the kind of question that I'm going to answer in this house. Thank you.
I recognize the Honorable Barnes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Let me ask another good question too. Deputy Speaker, Premier was saying earlier here that nobody followed through in the life audits, including himself when he was speaking of follow through. But at the end of the day, there are findings, there are no problems. I just wanted to check from him if he would extend to senior management as well these life audits. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a very interesting question as to, how do we make this as part of our senior management across the board? How do we make it as part of our entities and board members and people serving in positions where you are perhaps at risk of using your position to benefit yourself through procurement processes, et cetera, and I absolutely support the rolling it out. Obviously, it goes even further than that. It's how does it work across all facets of South Africa? I started off by saying that in a country where we do have corruption and we do have endemic corruption, we need to find all tools possible to start to deal with ending the scourge. We have to be able to find ways in which we really start to get to positions in our country that trust is much stronger, and these are the kind of mechanisms that build trust.
Honorable members, that concludes question number 1. I again recognize the Premier.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and to the Honourable Rita Kong, thank you very much for the question. The question is in 3 parts: whether he assesses the work performance of all of his ministers, and if so, what criteria or systems are used. 2, what measures are taken against ministers who are underperforming, especially when it comes to service delivery. And 3, whether the Western Cape government has a platform where residents can lodge complaints against specific A, provincial departments and or B, ministers. So thank you very much once again for that question. I thank the member. And it's not, and I note its similarity to an oral question asked by the very same member during the sitting of 19 September 2024 on question paper 4 of 24. With this in mind, I will take this opportunity to reiterate some of the answers I provided at that time, and I'm sure Props add 1 or 2 more items. In respect of question 1 and 2, accountability is one of the key, the 6 key values in which we base our behavior as employees of the Western Cape government and as servants of the residents of the people of this great province, the Western Cape. Everyone in our government is expected to adhere to these values, including and especially our provincial ministers. Our provincial ministers and I are accountable through our reports to Cabinet. We are accountable to the Auditor General and to the executive authorities of our departmental budgets and spending. We are accountable in certain circumstances. We may be partially accountable to relevant national bodies or national government. And last, but perhaps most importantly, we remain accountable to this House and its members through committee sessions, written and oral parliamentary questions, interpellations, appearances in the House. Even without my efforts, we ought to be thankful that our national and provincial constitutions ensure such a high level of honesty and accountability for our executive, especially when the same accountability has often been sorely lacking in other provinces or at national level. Over and above these measures, Deputy Speaker, I have instituted a formal accountability process to assess the work performance of all ministers. All ministers account on their quarterly financial and non-financial performance, on all the budgets and annual performance plans. Any risks on performance are discussed with the aim of finding corrective measures to ensure everyone stays on track with performance. I've also instituted one-on-one engagements with each minister to discuss performance of their votes on an individual basis. These performance discussions also include the accounting officer of each of the votes. The annual performance plans and the budget and the formal accountability instruments are the basis and the system used to assess the work performance of ministers and their respective departments. My most recent engagement with my ministers took place roughly a month ago in late April. During these meetings, myself and the Director General met with each minister in my cabinet, as well as their respective heads of department and senior staff members. Our conversations primarily centered around their ministerial priorities and their contributions to the overarching objectives of the 2025-30 Provincial Strategic Plan, which I have a copy here, and I encourage every single member in this House to be proficient in it, because this is another tool in which this House, these standing committees can actually hold us to account on the strategic plan. Of course, within that then comes all of our departmental plans, APPs, etc., etc. Speaker, as the House is aware, the apex priority of the Western Cape government over the next 5 years is outlined in the PSP. It's to grow our economy in order to create jobs and to equip our residents with the skills and resources necessary to get these jobs. This is a mission and a priority that unites not just this cabinet, but every one of our dedicated staff members. Each of our ministers has an integral part to play in making this vision a reality, and a core part of our discussions on their progress in relating their work to our greater goal of economic growth and job creation. Our apex priority is broken down into 4 portfolios, namely growth for jobs, safety, an educated, healthy and caring society, and innovation, culture and governance. Each portfolio supports economic growth and job creation by either directly driving opportunities or removing barriers that limit participation in the economy. That's considered the performance of the provincial ministers with regard to their contribution to their portfolios. It is important to note that many ministers have mandates which cut across portfolios of the PSP, something which is a result of our whole of government approach to accomplishing our apex priority. In brief, Minister Bartman is responsible for ensuring the fiscal responsibility of our province. More than this, her priorities also encompass the encouragement of measures such as alternative and blended financing, and to further enhance government's ability to spend effectively on services that matter to the Western Cape. As such, her department is heavily involved with innovation, culture, and the governance portfolio. As the executive authority, both the Department of Local Government and the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, Minister Bradell has an exceptional mandate across all 4 portfolios. As our primary interface with municipalities, the Department of Local Government has a part to play by building municipal capacity and ensuring the water security of our province. The Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning also has mandates across all 4 priorities, which is primarily used on the growth and jobs portfolio, although its assistance with driving investment and helping transition to a growing greener economy. Minister Launt and the Department of Social Development are responsible for many of the outcomes under the Education, Health and Caring Society portfolio, but they also have a critical role to play in the safety portfolio in terms of crime prevention and the growth of jobs portfolio by making it our drive to equip our residents with marketable skills. Similarly, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport under Minister Mackenzie has roles to play, not only enhancing the social fabric of our society, but also in upscaling our residents and employing the transformative power of sport and culture to assist in crime prevention. Our provincial heritage sites are also vital and vital draws for tourism, meaning that DCAS has a direct part to play in job creation. Minister Marais is obviously primarily responsible for the safety portfolio, and her Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety is primarily responsible for ensuring that the Western Cape is safe enough to grow economically and to reap the safety benefits that expand job creation that the expanded job creation will bring to our citizens. Under Minister Mania, the Western Cape Education Department has the task of ensuring the education of our children with the skills that they need to get the jobs of tomorrow, a critical component of the growth and jobs portfolio. But the WCED also has a critical role to play ensuring that we build the educated, healthy and caring society that we hope to achieve. And thus the WCED is a core part of that portfolio too. Minister Mayer was another minister with whom we discussed the affairs of two departments, namely agriculture and economic opportunities and tourism. Both of these departments make the core of our efforts towards economic growth. And therefore, it is Minister Mayer who perhaps more responsible than any other single minister for the growth strategy or growth and job strategy of our province. Minister Seleko is another key part of the growth and job strategy, and the Western Cape Mobility Department is a crucial part in ensuring, or plays a crucial part in ensuring our people can get to work and goods can move around the province safely, cheaply and efficiently. And the minister responsible for building and maintaining the critical infrastructure we need to grow this province is Minister Simmers. And he's also a member of the cabinet whose priorities primarily fall under the growth and jobs portfolio. However, the Department of Infrastructure's push for even more affordable housing is also a key part of enabling an educated, healthy and caring society. Finally, Minister Wenger and the Department of Health and Wellness are core components of building that society and ensure that the Western Cape government's healthcare offerings keep pace with the breakout growth and greater prosperity we expect to see in our province. In any instance of underperformance, we will take action, and the aim of supporting the respective departments and ministers to find solutions and to implement measures to correct any underperformance. As part of my own oversight, I also undertake service delivery visits to assess performance of departments. Findings feed into the individual discussions with ministers and also into cabinet. All of our ministers have thus been assessed according to their progress in each of their portfolios, which I have described above. While we are always ready to find new ways to help our ministers and departments perform better, I can tell you this House that the ministers are performing well and working effectively towards their mandates in service of the PSP's goals. At this time, there's no need to act against any minister for underperformance. And three, the Western Cape Government Contact Centre serves as the primary point of contact for residents to log queries, file complaints, and request government services. Interactions with residents are governed by the Western Cape Government Digital Channel Management Protocol, which is designed to support both Western Cape Government business operations and citizen service delivery through digitally enabled channels. The contact centre implemented and maintained high service standards to enhance its overall efficiency and responsiveness to residents. These would include answering 96% of all calls received, answering 85% of calls within 20 seconds, providing responses within 60 minutes during business hours, resolving complaints within 36 business hours, resolving 85% of queries on the first contact basis, and achieving a 95% resolution rate. Residents can access the contact centre through 15 channels, each managed according to our standard operating procedure, the Western Cape Government Digital Channel Management Protocol, and the applicable service standards. The contact centre follows a structured ticket life cycle. The ticket creation, all residents' interactions are captured in a CRM system and ticketed, ensuring proper documentation and efficient management of responses and resolutions. Ticket capture and first contact resolution. The contact centre aims for FCR by using annually verified FAQs from departments. Residents with a CRM profile can log their own tickets online through our website and monitor progress until resolution. Three, the escalations. If the contact centre is unable to achieve FCR, or if the ticket requires special attention due to its complexity or priority, it is escalated to the department response manager for further investigation and resolution. Residents are informed about escalation process and provided with the expected resolution timeframes. For resolutions and feedbacks, the ticket is updated according to progress, and ultimately it is resolved, including evidence to that effect. Citizen satisfaction. After a ticket is resolved, citizen satisfaction is measured through a formal survey in the CRM. Quality assurance, a percentage of staff engagements with residents undergo quality assurance checks to ensure that the contact center agents meet acceptable performance standards and error thresholds. Data and reporting, the contact center complies with POPIA and provides departments with a regular report according to an agreed upon reporting schedule. Tickets regarding HODs or ministers are managed through the Priority Escalation and Resolution Management, the PERM, standard operating procedure, which also includes serious matters such as threats of life, allegations of corruption or abuse of power, or systemic service delivery failures. The contact center after hours are office hours are from Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 1700, weekends 8 o'clock until 1 o'clock or 1300, and after hours the contact center has a voicemail facility that is available outside of agreed operating hours, and responses are made within 60 minutes of business hours activation. Please call me, SMS and emails are still received after hours, and responses are made within 60 minutes of business hour activation. Additionally, First Thursdays is another mechanism where residents are able to raise concerns and complaints. Every resident's case is registered by the contact center staff and their details captured, including the nature of the case with whom they came to see. Every minister and HOD of department has a scribe that records the conversation and the nature of the case. That correspondence then is disseminated to the relevant officials or programs as directed by the minister or head of department. Each office will have their own prescribed way of managing and resolving those specific cases. In the Office of the Premier, all cases are logged on a CMAT system and given a specific reference number. Should any case from First Thursdays be related to another department and their mandates, an email will be sent from my office to the relevant minister and department, which includes the case background, the request that the matter be addressed. Furthermore, they are requested to contact the resident to discuss the possible solutions of their concerns raised. Once the matter has been referred to the relevant department and minister, my office will send an email to the resident, which will provide the background of the case, the resolution, and introduce the resident to the office that was dealing with that case, and will be copied into the email. And last but not least, I'm always excited to receive feedback from our residents, and my office frequently responds to queries, compliments, and complaints received from residents. Any resident of the Western Cape has the option of sending me an email at premier.windy@westerncape.gov.za or calling my office directly. These numbers are listed on our Western Cape Government website and are the contact details of any one of the provincial ministers. Much of the information I have given is in this reply is contained within the 2025-30 PSP document, which is freely available on our website. While I would expect every member of this House to have read that document by this point, and as part of their oversight duties, I would encourage the members of the public to read it as well. It demonstrates the roadmap this government intends to follow over the next 5 years, and it is vital that the public knows how their government intends to make the Western Cape more prosperous, safer, better, and more innovative. Because while the Cabinet of the Western Cape Government remains accountable to myself as Premier and this House as the oversight mechanism, all of us are ultimately accountable to the most important authority in this province, the people who live in it. While we may not always agree, I firmly believe that our government, this House, and the residents we collectively serve remain totally united in the vision of a better Western Cape for all of our residents. Deputy Speaker, thank you.
Honorable Lithakong, is there a follow-up from your side?
Thank you so much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The Premier didn't answer my question. However, in this seventh administration, has the Premier received any complaints from either communities, members of the public, or civil organization against specific member of his executive or their departments? And if so, what actions did the Premier take or implement against them? Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I'm really confused. The honourable members just said that I did not answer the question. And then the question that she followed to ask was not the question that is put on the order paper. I'll just read it to her again. 1, whether he assesses the work performance of all of his ministers, and if so, what criteria or systems are used. 2, what measures are taken against ministers who are underperforming, especially when it comes to service delivery. 3, whether the Western Cape government has a platform where residents can lodge complaints against specific A, provincial departments, and B, ministers. That is different to what she has just asked me right now. And she can't say you have not answered the question, then repeat a different question. The honourable member has now been a member of this House for quite a while, and she should know that, that is a different question. If you wanted that answer, you should have asked that question. I've just given, and I don't know, I almost feel like reading this answer all over again, but I actually will. Should I? I feel like answering it all over again, but I do feel for the honourable members, and
You can read
maybe
it all
maybe
again.
I should.
You can read the whole
Honourable
day.
Lita Kong, Honourable Lita Kong, do you have a point of order?
He can read it all again for the whole day, Deputy Speaker.
That is not a point of order, Premier. Please proceed.
So thank you very much. I would say the honourable member actually knows how it works in this House. I would presume by now. If not, if I could request the whips on the other side of the House to help her, because we really need to make sure that we utilise this space. This space is about oversight. And of course, that question, if she wants it answered, she must please put it in writing to me, send it to me, and we will, as I've just shown, we will answer that question exactly to what she has asked of me. Thank you, Speaker.
I see the Honourable Van Minnen.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. How does the department assess the effectiveness of a First Thursday initiative where ministers literally interact face to face with the people who live in the Western Cape? Thank you.
So thank you very much for that follow-up. I mean, I explained the process in my answer. So we record every single one of those visits. It goes into the system. But the question is about effectiveness. And so I suppose at the end of the day, it's whether the citizen is getting a satisfactory answer. And listen, I mean, we must also be honest. Not every citizen is going to be happy, because sometimes the question that they ask is maybe not, we're not able to deliver on that specific question. It could pertain to a different government. Or perhaps it was something that we have to say no to. I know the Honourable Bradell always reminds me that no is also an answer. Sometimes they want to ask you something and you say, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to do that. And that is an answer, but then that might be not seen as an effective reply from the citizen's point of view. But we really do try to gauge those answers. We really do try very hard to get those answers through as quickly as possible. And sometimes they are difficult. There might not be a difficult resolution, but your question reminds me of a certain individual who used to come to First Thursdays. He came from Blackheath. He would come and he would visit myself, but he would also visit Minister Simmers. He would visit other people around his problem, and his problem was the roadway had double lanes going both ways. And it had I think it had a right turn indicator to get through the traffic. But if you were coming from the other direction, it didn't have the indicator. So those vehicles never got through the traffic. And he would come and he had drawings. It was unbelievable. He had drawings of what needs to happen. And this is so easy to fix. And then I would say, sure, this looks very simple. And I'd go to infrastructure and can we fix this? And I promise you, a month later, I'd see him coming in and I'd go like, no, we can't not have fixed this for you yet. And he would come with his documents and we'd all engage with him again. And I think he came 3 times. And it got to the stage where I would be mailing the team 2 days before First Thursday to say, this guy's coming to see us. I hope we've sorted out the problem. And Brachizwaar, I see him coming. I hadn't got the answer yet, and I see him coming into First Thursday, and I go, here we are bust now again. And he walked in and I said, listen, I don't know what to say to you. He said, no, I've come to say thank you. And it was done. And so some of them are things that take a bit of time, but we really do endeavor to get to that satisfied citizen, that satisfied customer. And people bring real legitimate issues that, because you're on the ground, you see a problem. And maybe when you're sitting in a desk in a planning department, you don't see that problem. And that, I mean, that's why I'm so excited about this program. It's been running for years. I still don't know of any other government that does it. But it is about being accessible to the citizen. When they've got an issue, they can come and talk to any of the ministers or the HODs, and we will see if we can find resolution.
I see no further follow-ups. We will proceed to question number 3, and I recognize the Minister, Minister Bartman.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you for allowing me to be online for the sitting. I just want to check if I'm audible.
Yes, Minister, you may proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In response to subsection 1, the fiscal consolidation of 6.4 billion rand was included in the allocation letter from National Treasury for the province in respect of the 2024 MTEF budget. These reductions were imposed on all provinces, of which the Western Cape share amounted to 6.4 billion rand. The causes are described in the 2023 National Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement. The Western Cape government also published information on fiscal consolidation on pages 32 and 33 of the 2023 Western Cape Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement. In response to subsection 2, yes, the breakdown of the anticipated revenue and expenditure of the department for 2024-25 financial year was provided. Annual revenue amounting to this included a breakdown of the annual revenue amounting to 30.850 billion rand, and also disaggregated on a monthly basis of the financial year, April 2024 to March 2025, and also expenditure amounting to 30.850 billion rand, comprising of compensation of employees, 22.308 billion rand, goods and services, 3.463 billion rand, transfers and subsidies, 3.683 billion rand, payments for capital assets, 1.391 billion rand, and payment for financial assets, 5.116 million rand. This is further disaggregated on a monthly basis of the financial year, April 2024 to March 2025, to reflect the expenditure projections. In response to subsection 3, yes, the accounting officer of the WCED complied with section 40, subsection 4, subsection B read in conjunction with section 40, subsection 4, subsection C of the PFMA, and submitted information on actual revenue and expenditure on a monthly basis in the prescribed format, namely the in-year monitoring or IYM reporting model. As previously communicated, the Provincial Treasury was informed by the Western Cape Education Department through the early warning system in the July 2024 IYM report submitted in August 2024 that the measures put in place as part of the HR plan to curb spending was not achieving the desired result, putting pressure on their budget. Subsequently, the Provincial Treasury engaged on the information that was provided, and measures were put in place to address this pressure through the 2024 adjusted estimates process. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for the reply. If the fiscal consolidation arose in the 2023 medium-term budget policy statement, how did the Provincial Minister of Finance table a budget in March 2024 that had not incorporated that consolidation and thus presented credible estimates of expenditure for cost of employment of educators? Thank you.
I recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The question is related to a period before my appointment. However, based on the information before us, In terms of the fiscal consolidation, the 6.4 billion rand was taken into account in the previous budget process. The member referred to March 2024, that was taken into account. This was published in the 2023 Western Cape Medium Term Budget Policy Statement on pages 32 and 33. As I indicated in subsection 1 of my response, which the Western Cape government did publish. This was also described in the 2023 National Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement before that particular budget. So this information was previously published. Deputy Speaker, you'll also know that there's always risks in the system, and one of the risks at that time nationally was the fiscal consolidation that was affecting all provinces, and the Western Cape share of that particular risk amounted to 6.4 billion rand. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I note the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, on the 8th of May, the Minister said that the gap in funding that led to 2,407 educator posts being slashed arose because of a fiscal consolidation of 6.4 billion rand. If she's now saying that that 6.4 billion rand was included in the 2024 budget that was tabled in March 2024, then how does that reply align to her reply to my question on the 8th of May, where she says the consolidation arose, the gap in the Western Cape Education Department's cost of employment emerged because of a consolidation that took place in the 2024 MTEF. In other words, the provincial government was already aware of the MTBPS, and so when they adopted the budget in March 2024, it's not possible for that to be the reason for the gap arising.
I recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I can't remember the full part of that previous answer, but if I remember correctly, I also mentioned the fact that every year we've been having increases in learners into our province. In the Provincial Economic Review and Outlook previously, for example, we have seen that we've had a 19.6% increase in our population in the Western Cape, and that is only for the past period. And we're also anticipating an increase in our population going forward. And I remember previously speaking in this House about the impact of migration across provinces to especially economic hubs, to urban areas, and what that pressure is putting on service delivery in the various provinces. I know provinces that are particularly affected by the population growth are provinces such as the Western Cape, it's provinces such as Gauteng, such as KwaZulu-Natal. And what that does is when people really move towards service delivery, you have to now start delivering for more people with less resources. And I do remember in this House speaking about what the impact of that pressure would be. I also spoke previously, and if I remember correctly, this was part of the Municipal Economic Review and Outlook, where we spoke about how that is also going to impact our municipalities and how that is also putting pressure on municipalities to be able to now deliver more with less and for more people. And while we do our best to be able to provide services for the people in our province, that comes at a cost. And we hope that national government will take this into account going forward in the 2025 medium-term budget policy statement. Something that I think the national government and particularly National Treasury can take into account is how we can possibly even have a look at the review of the provincial equitable share formula. And this is something I'm quite passionate about and I've spoken about previously. When we look at the provincial equitable share formula, you will notice that the weighting of the population in the formula does not account for the fact that we are the third biggest province at the moment. The result of the formula means that we're only getting the fifth biggest or the fifth smallest share. Also, when you look at, so essentially in that terms of that population data, is we really need to have a look at the weighting of the population data in that formula. Another item in the provincial equitable share formula that we can really have a look at reviewing is the economic data. As the member may know, the economic data only makes up 1% of the provincial equitable share formula. And when you look at the economies, it means that your economic data hardly gets taken into account. So the formula does not incentivize innovation. It does not incentivize good governance. And when you look at subsectors into the formula as well. In the health component, for example, home-based care is currently not taken into account. So what ends up happening is provinces like Gauteng particularly and the Western Cape in particularly, if you start innovating and you now start helping more people from home because you don't want the queues at the hospitals and the clinics to be long, what ends up happening is the metric in the formula does not count that as a feed to the hospital or feed to the clinic. So now what ends up happening is they then exclude that particular information that you're helping that person at home because you're trying to do your best to bring services to your people in your province. But what that ends up doing is we're losing money because that particular person didn't specifically go to the hospital or specifically go to the clinic. When we also look at the sub data in the education component of the formula, we will also see that, for example, we're getting the same amount of money per learner, and it excludes whether the person qualifies for special needs or not. So what ends up happening is if you are someone who requires special needs education, you more than likely need up to 6 times the amount for a normal learner. Obviously, Deputy Speaker, it varies across different circumstances, but it's up to 6 times the amount that you need per learner. So what ends up happening is if you're getting the same amount per learner, then you end up having to subsidize the rest of the particular learners. And when you look at the grant system, the grant system does not adequately essentially account for all the rest of the funding that is required. So you'll often see in some of these budgets where where grants are essentially subsidizing the information from your provincial equitable share formula, that we even have to sometimes add some extra equitable share and even some extra provincial revenue funding to particular budgets in order to assist departments to be able to continue delivering. I was having a look at how some of this fiscal consolidation is really affecting provinces. And Deputy Speaker, you would probably know that recently the National Finance Minister, he announced that there's going to be extra funding for health and education via this new budget process flowing to provinces. And the reason that there's new money flowing to provinces in terms of this particular service delivery is because of the lack of funding really that has been coming through previously. I know some provinces have accruals and some provinces have really been struggling in terms of being able to pay for service delivery mandates in their province. I know, for example, in the Eastern Cape with education, they're not even paying office electricity bills. They're not paying for school feeding. They're not paying for norms and standards to schools. In the Free State, for example, they're failing to pay the medical aid funds that they deduct, that money that they deduct from the staff to GEMS. In Gauteng, for example, they're cutting funding to independent school subsidies. And I just want to pause here with that particular part. Is a lot of people think that learners that go to independent schools are all rich or something, but not every learner who ends up in an independent school has the ability to pay to be there. And it's not every learner there is wealthy. Some learners really, they worked hard and they maybe, they got in and, they get bursaries or they subsidize. And, people work very hard, to give the best quality education to their children. So when you cut independent school subsidies, it's affecting the poorest learners and the most vulnerable learners who go to those independent schools. I mean, Gauteng is also cutting funding to schools of specialization. They're cutting learner transport and school feeding and delaying teacher promotions as well. KZN, I know, is not paying norms and standards funding or, staff pay progression. Mpumalanga was reported to they're retaining posts, but they're not filling them, and they're not providing textbooks or reader top-ups. I think in Northwest, they were not paying learner transport operators, and in Northern Cape, they were failing to disburse transfers to schools, which affected the nutrition, the NSNP program, the norms and standards, and hostel subsidies. And Deputy Speaker, these items that I'm mentioning, these are just what I can see via reporting on, for example, News 24 in this past few months. And this, the budget process has been very difficult because we try our best to give really effect to the mandate that is given to us in terms of the Constitution, and particularly to be able to protect our frontline services, particularly in health, particularly in education, particularly in social development. The member would also know that the fiscal consolidation previously really affected health as well in terms of appointments previously. And the member would also know that for example, what we saw in terms of the budget risks, which we mentioned previously, that even health saw a risk in terms of the inflation that increased, the medical inflation, which obviously always increases more than normal inflation. And what this ended up doing is like you then start seeing throughout the year that you have extra risks coming through the system. You have increased forecasted expenditure, and obviously when we table these documents before the budget committee, and we do so regularly in terms of our mandates and in terms of the oversight that is required over us, that we table when we see forecasted over expenditure coming, but we also need to deal with those particular risks. So we try our best through the different budgets to deal with those particular risks. But we also table them, because that is what we must do as a government. We must indicate what those risks are. So those particular risks that is described in the question before us, that was described both in the 2023 National MTBPS as well as the 2023 Western Cape MTBPS at the time. And we need to make sure that going forward as a country, that we need to be able to really budget for our service delivery in our country. So I'm really happy for the extra funding that's coming through from National Treasury and the National Government for Health and Education later this year. And as you know, Deputy Speaker, we'll then we'll pass the finances along to the respective departments when it lands in our bank accounts, in order to assist with the real pressure on the ground that they are facing, especially because Min Bredal always speaks about how we're going to have to build an extra city essentially within the Western Cape, and how much water we need, how much electricity we need, how we need to upgrade our sewerage systems, and this is because we need to be able to plan better for the future. And when we look at, for example, things like how the increase of disasters, I mean, I'm currently here at our Western Cape Government Smart Procurement Conference, and I can really, give Mr. Colin Dyer a
Honorable
wonderful...
Minister,
Is the honourable...
we will stop the clock.
Is the minister trying to run out the clock? She has spoken for 15 minutes without actually answering the question. Did the executive take lessons in filibustering? Because it's not the first time we've seen ministers talk for the entire question time without answering the question. Is the minister trying to run out the clock? Can she just answer that question?
Thank you so much,
Exactly.
honourable members. I cannot dictate to how a minister will respond to a particular question. Are you rising on the same at? We have 2 minutes and 58 seconds remaining. I've taken note of your point. And I sincerely trust that in terms of the decorum of this particular house, that honourable ministers will take their particular question time extremely seriously. But I cannot, in terms of dictate how they should respond. But I'm sure the minister heard the last part of your question. Minister?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I wrote the follow-up question down, and I just want to quickly repeat it to indicate like why am I speaking about fiscal consolidation? Because the follow-up question spoke about, if there was fiscal consolidation, why was it not incorporated at that time? And then I started speaking about what the implications of that fiscal consolidation was, when it was reported, how it is impacting our province. And I'm happy to repeat, that particular part. I'm hoping that it's useful information. I mean, I said in the first part of the question originally that the causes of the fiscal consolidation was described in the 2023 National Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement, and that the Western Cape government also published information on the fiscal consolidation on pages 32 and 33 of the 2023 Western Cape Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement. I then attempted to go into more detail as to what this means in terms of where we need to go, in terms of what needs to happen, in terms of the current expectations on us as provinces from the national government. I mean, we're in a very difficult economic outlook at the moment nationally. Since the first budget and the second budget that was tabled nationally, our economic outlook has worsened, and so has business confidence. I'm just really happy that the South African Reserve Bank has cut the repo rate a little bit. But I do take this very seriously, and we need to make sure that we are able to look to the future and to try and see how can we better finance some of these mandates and some of these services in our province. And that is also why, we see that we have a bold infrastructure plan that we've put on the table that we want to be able to fund through working with the private sector. We've seen that we have, as a government, adopted alternative and blended financing framework. And all of these documents together, we're really trying our best to make sure that we need to go out and go find extra financing, because when we look at the debt to GDP in our country, when we look at the money that is currently there or not there, in this case nationally, we can't continue relying on the possibility of our provincial equitable share formula amount increasing, or that our grants might increase. We need to now start increasing our work with the private sector and find alternative solutions to some of the big issues that we're facing in our province. And one of those big issues that we're facing in our province is population growth. I mean, if you have population growth of 19.6%, it's outpacing our GDP, it's outpacing our jobs growth, it's outpacing the gains we've made with the Gini coefficient and the HDI. So we do need to plan for that. We need to prepare for
Honourable
that.
Minister, please conclude.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I know I've indicated the respective figures, but I'll obviously, with the question and the parliamentary rules, obviously also submit the figures to the House for as usual. Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That is the end of questions for oral reply. Outstanding replies will be printed in Hansard. Before we proceed in terms of Rule 204, I've seen and heard some members indicating that they were unable to hear those giving input online. I wish to state that I could clearly hear, but if any member is unable to clearly hear in the chamber, if a member or a minister is speaking online, you are more than welcome to use the headset. Members, in terms of Rule 204, we will now proceed to questions to the Premier without notice. I wish to remind honourable members that there's 2 follow-ups by the member posing the question, which relates to the original question. I now note the Honourable Camphor. Moment, I've seen the Honourable Camphor online. Okay. Honourable members, we will commence the clock. We have 20 minutes for this particular section. I see the Honourable Bryant.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, my question to the Premier is, what is the current status of the water and sanitation environment in the Knysna local municipality?
I heard the chief whip behind me say, what was the question? It is the current situation of the war. What is the current water situation in the municipality of Knysna? I actually was reading some documents earlier. Yeah. Thank you very much for that question. First of all, I believe that the Honourable Comfort is actually not well and in hospital. So please, if I'm sorry, that's the reason that he was not able to ask that question. And please tell him we hope he gets well soon. Thank you very much for that question. It happened to be that in 2 weeks ago that I was actually in that town in Knysna in the middle of that crisis. So at that stage, there were massive protests happening in that town. And in actual fact, the reason I said it was interesting that I actually received a letter this morning from the mayor in Knysna saying thank you very much to the province for stepping in to help with engineers and water trucks and things like that. But the interesting thing was when I got to the town, we weren't aware of the water situation, but apparently there were parts of Knysna that hadn't had water for 3 weeks. 9 wards were affected altogether. And in actual fact, on the second day that I was there, I interacted with the protesters because they were protesting in the Renendal area. They hadn't had water for 2 weeks. And we'd already had some water trucks coming from the district municipality. But thanks to Minister Bradell and the disaster team, we got water trucks sent from as far as the Weskus district municipality. It's an interesting situation in that town. They really do have a serious battle with keeping the lights on, keeping services going. Water is just one of their issues. And the citizens are actually raising funds. I believe there's something like about 1,000 citizens that are putting money in every single month to private citizens who are then going in and replacing the pumps or repairing the pumps, which is quite scary, in fact, that citizens have to pay rates and taxes twice almost in that town. I know that on the Saturday afterwards, the Friday afternoon, they put in new pumps. I think it was the Thursday. They put in new pumps into the Renendal region. Messages were sent out that it's all going to be fine. They just have to fill the reservoir. And the next thing, the pumps blew up again. I think there's something like 9 pumps altogether that are totally failed. They are in repair, but the repair shop won't release those pumps because they're not paying for the servicing or the repair of the pumps. I know that we as a province have been called on time and time again to put more and more money. I mean, you'll know 3 years ago, we started by clearing up the rubbish pile. And then again, eventually got to a stage where municipalities refused to send help anymore because they weren't even getting thank you notes. But it was just, don't worry, other people will step in and sort out the problem. We were spending millions. Now it's got to the stage where even those millions we won't release them. We will release them directly to the service providers because of the bad governance there at the moment. But the water situation is critical. They've now managed to get some of the pumps back in place, so there is water supplied. But this is not the first time that it's happened. At the same time as that refuse pile was building up, we know that specifically in Hornley, they had mud coming out of their pipes, if they had anything coming out of their pipes. And we know that was all at that same time when there was a dead body floating in the water reservoir. That was just atrocious. It had decomposed quite badly. It was very difficult to retrieve it out of the water system. And people had been drinking that water for days and days and days. I think it was in there for 18 days or some quite crazy number. So yeah, the water system is it's a major crisis. And it's not only, when you say the water system, it's not only the drinking water system, it's the lagoon water system, it's the sewer water system. The whole component of service delivery is in total collapse. In actual fact, you know, I saw the ANC's, and I saw the Honourable Said has just left. But I mean, he had this lot to say. ANC welcomes progress made on Knysna water crisis by the ANC-led coalition. He probably should not have put this out at all, because I mean that's quite embarrassing. Don't recognize something that is in such total failure and decay. But it was interesting because I when you asked that question, I'd actually had received this letter from the mayor, and I'm looking at replying to the mayor. I've got a report on water quality. This is not water quality in the drinking system. This is water quality in the lagoon, which is also quite key to their whole economy. And you know, when you test water quality and you do the water testing, and I mean this, you can see this tests the water every single month, and it's got a lot of red marks on it. Red is when it gets into the critical stage of water quality. I can't tell you how many times the green scorpions have been called in to go and they've laid charges against the speaker, against the mayor, against all sorts of people. But just to give you some context, there must be naught, the percentage of E. coli in the water per 100. If you have naught per 100, that's potable water, drinking water. You can't have any E. coli. No, I swear in this house. You're going to shit in the water, but you can't have any of it. So it should be naught per 100. If you have the levels of 126 per 100, 126 per 100, I'll get you help dimensa now. If you have 126 per 100, 126 per 100, it becomes dangerous. That's when the risks start happening. At 1,000 per 100, you actually then should not swim. You should not be involved in that, get anywhere near that water. So remember the number 126 per 100, that's kind of like risk. 235 per 100, actually then it starts to go, don't swim. At 1,000 per 100, that's kind of like at maximum, don't do anything with this water. So let me give you some of the indicators. So, I mean, they test Belvedere, Bollard Bay, Costa Sada, Crabs Creek, Greenhole, Lake Brenton, Salt River, the heads, the culverts at Bichai, Bongani, Cada, Long Street, Queen Street, and the train station. These are all the places that they do these tests every single month. So I said to you that critical number is 235. If anything is above 235, it's now, don't swim, not so liquor. If it's over 1,000, this is a disaster. That's when scorpions start laying charges. So if I take, I mean, in actual fact, in the last readings over time, Belvedere and Bollard Bay have been okay. 21 per 100, 67 per 100. I mean, that's quite far off the 126 per 100. But let me highlight Costa Sada. 520,000 to 100. Not 1,000, 520,000 to 100 parts. Greenhole, 1,000. Okay, that says, don't swim. Salt River, 15,000. Bichai, 37,000 to 100. Ada, that's the angling club, 15,000 to 100. I mean, it's amazing. 15,000 sounds like nothing, but that's 15 times over that 1,000 limit. But quite frankly, the one that stands out for me is Queen Street at 810,000 per 100. That was the January reading. The February reading, we saw it come down to 8,500, so only 8 and a bit times more. It's now gone back up to 11,000 and then 27,000. And the other number that stands out is the train station, which is 560,000 per 100. This is what the scorpions are dealing with. But this is about a municipality where on this letterhead, African National Congress, it says the ANC welcomes the progress made on Knysna water crisis led by the ANC-led coalition. Remember, this is a coalition of the ANC, the Patriotic Alliance, the EFF, the EFF is part of this coalition. I mean, it is horrendous. So I've spoken about the potable water, from bodies to no water to pumps blowing up, the sewage system, the leakage of the sewage system, which basically ends up in these numbers. This is the sewage system. If you go to Hornley and you have a look at how the municipality have repaired the system in Hornley, they just took a big hammer and they smashed a big hole in the wooden sump where all of the main pipes come in. They don't clear the blockage, they just break a hole in it, and then the sewage just runs from there in front of people's houses. It's just totally unbelievable. So the water situation is quite complex. It's potable water, it's sewage systems and water, and then of course it is the driver of the economy, the lagoon water. And so it is horrendous. It really, really is horrendous. So I really don't think that the African National Congress welcomes the progress made on Knysna water crisis.
Order, members.
No, it is not progress
Order,
whatsoever.
member. Thank you, Premier. Member Bryant.
Thank you, and thank you to the Premier for those very shocking statistics and information that's been provided. You know, Premier, as a son of the soil yourself, it must be a very difficult thing to witness this in Knysna, in your hometown. And we know that the things were starting to come right at one stage. And since this coalition of chaos has come in, there's been a terrible decline. And I just want to know, is there anything that can be done from the Western Cape government side, between yourself, Minister Bradell, and others, to assist further? And if so, what is that? Because at the moment, it just looks like a terrible, terrible disaster.
Thank you, Honourable Member Bryant. Premier.
Thank you very much. I mean, that is exactly the dilemma that we find ourselves in. I think we've had lots of discussions in this House on administration and Section 139, and we've gone through those processes, and it's in the process. It's something that all the premiers raised with the president at the PCC, is that when local governments fail, provinces can't really step in quickly enough or properly. And we need to change that. There is a white paper at the moment for comment on local government, and we urge everyone to comment. We need to change Section 139. We will continue with our process. Treasury is in there all the time trying to help them. At the same time, local government is there. That letter from the mayor was saying, thank you very much. We sent engineers. We got water trucks from other municipalities. I go back to that refuse pile. We put money in to actually clear up that refuse pile, not once, but twice. And the problem is, and this is the dilemma, you know, should a province just run the town? And we can't do that. That's not how it works. You know, people vote, they choose a government, and that government must run. When the government fails, then we must be able to step in and help, but we can't run the government. And of course, we've got this dilemma. So hopefully we do get to a stage with a 139 actually ends up as a supported process from the ANC and the DA to say, let's actually fix this town. And so I mentioned about the refuse removal and the help that we've put in. At the moment, we really are trying to help get an alternate refuse site. Because if you go to that, I was there now, I went to the refuse site. Now it's got a restaurant right next to the refuse site. The owner of the restaurant, and I mean, it's so sad. I mean, yeah, you're trying to get specifically, you know, people who was previously disadvantaged. Now here's this guy, he's opened a restaurant and the rats are running through his restaurant. So now he hasn't got any customers anymore. And he owes debt to the bank. And it is so sad. The illegal people living in that dump site, and they are violent. I mean, when I was there now having a look, I mean, they all came up and they were threatening, and it's terrible. And then I mean, the previous night before, they were telling me, I was actually speaking to the ladies who the volunteers who do the gardens. So I've told you about citizens and an engineering guy who actually fixed the infrastructure. So these are people of the town that go and fix infrastructure. Then there are people of the town who go and repair the gardens and And I was chatting to them. I walked with them. I met everybody. I actually did some planting with them. And then we walked across because they said we must come and show you. They were telling me about a tourist who walked past there the previous day and got robbed and stabbed. And then you got like, we're the police and we shouldn't have this. And whose property is this? Get these people off this property. It's unhealthy. And then the businesses knock on is just horrendous. But I mean, you know what happened during this crisis? Gift of the givers. I mean, they are always there. We really value the partnership that we have in this province with Gift of the Givers. Wraak is waar the people start attacking and stoning Gift of the Givers when they come to bring water and support. I mean, that is really unacceptable. That cannot happen. And so, yes, I mean, we again, I say, we're putting money in for pumps. We're putting money in for refuge. We actually got teams of engineers. So we're taking resources and we are putting resources into a municipality that is totally failing. Now, one feels that if you put the resource in, you fix the system, and now it works, you're quite happy. But our taxpayers will be angry to say, well, now we've got to go and put it in again because now it's failed again. And don't worry, next month when they can't meet the budget, we'll go and do it again. It cannot be. There needs to be responsibility of this coalition to deal with it or step aside. Step aside. And quite frankly, the message at the end of the day is voters make choices, and choices are expensive when they fail, or there are consequences that are very expensive when it doesn't work. And it is really worrying that we actually have towns like this where the citizens are actually, there's so much contempt, there's so much disregard, there's so much actually abuse of your citizens when you can't give them water, when you can't give them refuse removal. And all of these things have negative consequences to the economy of that specific town. And if ever there's a town in our province, that has the wherewithal to actually become probably the most prosperous town in our region. They've got amazing environment. They've got great people. They've got a lagoon in a town and the small villages and towns. When we cycled through that town the other day and you go up into the Karatras and the Renendals it is amazing. It is beautiful. It really is. It is such a nice place. But quite frankly, the services to those residents and those citizens is just non-existent and failing month after month after month. So we will continue to assist wherever we can. We will continue to support wherever we can. And we will continue also with our processes of, the 139 interventions and sending Treasury in and sending Department of Local Government in and sending our officials in to help where we can and calling on national government to do exactly the same thing. Quite frankly, we've got to do that to try to really alleviate the situation.
Thank you very much, Premier. Honorable Bryant.
Thank you, Premier. And Premier, I'm glad that you mentioned hope because I think there is a lot of hope for that community if they get things together. But I think at the moment they're sitting with a situation where they are barely holding on by their fingernails and they can't wait until the elections next year to vote that coalition out. But between now and then, what would your advice be to the people of Knysna, in terms of holding on until then? And really sort of consolidating behind something new and fresh to take over and really give them back proper hope again.
Thank you very much, Honorable Brian. Premier, if you don't mind, please take your seat. You had your hand up, Member Petrus.
Thank you,
Is that a
Speaker.
point of order?
No, Speaker. I'm just concerned about the time. Are you going to take our question as the Patriotic Alliance about the violence in
Thank you,
Western
Member.
Cape?
That is not a point of order, but we do have order, members. We do have.
We are abusing the process now.
Thank you, Member Petrus. That is not a point of order. We do have allocated time to questions, allocated to questions to the Premier. And I believe in terms of the member posing the questions, having two follow-up opportunities and the Premier responding accordingly, one cannot dictate. You may proceed. Thank you, Premier.
Thank you very much. And Perhaps I can say to the Honourable Petrus that obviously if he has got a question, we are very happy to answer any question that they put to us. We have proper processes, but of course we must stick to the rules. But we will continue to support where we can. We will continue to put funding aside where possible to help this situation. And but perhaps this is where maybe even the oversight committee needs to get involved and visit. And quite frankly, I would say that this is the perfect place where, without the proper rules or the adjustment of our Section 139, that this is probably where the leader of the opposition should not send a letter like this. He should rather say, let's actually get together. Let's get together and agree to a proper administration process so that we can actually deal with this problem. As you said, the Honourable Bryant, that people are going to wait for another election. And can you wait that long? I don't know.
Thank you, Premier. Can you please wrap up? Your time is
Yes,
up.
I can. Thank you. But we need people to think very seriously. Your vote means something, and you need to think about it seriously when you make your vote. It has consequences.
Thank you very much, Premier. Honourable members, that is the end of questions to the Premier. We now deal with statements by members in terms of Rule 145. Is that Member Petrus?
Premier, are you still willing to take the question?
Member Petrus, we have now passed, as per the rules, as per today's order, we now find ourselves at statements by members in terms of Rule 145. There will now be an opportunity for member statements, and members do have 2 minutes each. I now recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, today marks the commencement of Child Protection Week, observed annually in our country to raise awareness of the importance of safeguarding the well-being of our children. This year, as we unite under the theme, Working Together in Ending Violence Against Children, we reaffirm our unwavering commitment to creating a safe and nurturing environment for every child in the Western Cape. Our provincial government has long prioritized the protection of our most vulnerable citizens. Through dedicated programs within the Department of Social Development, we have strived to strengthen families and provide essential support to children in need. Initiatives focused on prevention and early intervention, child and youth care centers, and the tireless work of designated child protection organizations are all vital components of our comprehensive approach. We recognize that child protection is a shared responsibility. It requires collaboration between government, civil society organizations, communities, and every individual. On a related and saddened note, Honourable House Chairperson, we note the sentence handed down today in the trial related to the disappearance of young Jocelyn Smith. The conviction of the accused on charges of kidnapping and human trafficking sends a strong message that such heinous crimes against children will not be tolerated in our society. We welcome the life sentences, and we trust that justice will be served in this deeply distressing case with the little child still missing. While this verdict cannot undo the pain and suffering endured, we hope it provides some measure of closure and reinforces our collective determination to protect our children. As Child Protection Week unfolds, let us all be reminded of our duty to be vigilant, to report any concerns, and to actively contributing to building a province where all children can grow free from fear and harm. The Western Cape government remains committed and dedicated to this crucial mandate, working tirelessly to ensure the safety and security
Member,
of every
please
child
conclude. Your time is
within our
up.
borders.
Thank you very much. I recognize the African National Congress.
But it's fine. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair of the session. Today I rise to salute an outstanding son of our province, Coach Fadlu Davids, who is proudly flying the South African flag high on the African football stage. Born and raised here in the Western Cape, Coach Davids has made history by leading Simba Sports Club of Tanzania to the final of the CAF Confederations Cup, their first appearance since 1993. While no South African club reached the final, a South African from our province was there. on the touchline, guiding his team with vision, discipline, and heart. It is under his leadership that Simba has become a dominant force in East African football, and his success is shared by a technical team of fellow South Africans, many from the Western Cape, a true export of talent and tactical excellence. Coach David's journey is one of resilience and excellence, from the dusty fields of the Cape Flats to trialing in Europe, captaining local teams and coaching at the highest level. From Cape Town Spurs and Santos to coaching roles the um, at the famous Pirates, Orlando Pirates, and Raja Casablanca in Morocco, and now taking Simba to continental glory. His career proves what is possible when we invest in our youth and in grassroots sports. His history is not just one of individual achievement. It is a reminder that in every corner of our communities, in Belhar, in Athlone, in Guguletu, the next Fadlu Davids is waiting for opportunity, waiting for recognition, waiting for support. To Coach Davids, we say thank you. You carry the pride of your club, your community,
Please
and our
wrap up,
nation.
member, your
You are
time.
a symbol of what the Western Cape can offer Africa and the world. We honor you and we wish you continued success.
Thank you very much, honourable member. I recognise the Patriotic Alliance.
Honorable Chairperson, members of the House, today we note as municipalities race to finalize their 2025-2026 integrated development plans and budgets, we must pause and reflect on the concerning pattern that is emerging across the Western Cape. We are seeing that public participation meetings are sparsely attended. The ratio of attendees to the actual population in municipal areas is wrongly low. Community members are either unaware, uninformed, or unconvinced that their voices in these processes will make any difference. In many instances, advertisements for these engagements are minimal, last minute, or completely absent. This leads us to a critical question. Is the IDP truly a document of the people, or has it become a tick box exercise to meet compliance deadlines? If the people are not present, not heard, and not meaningfully included, can we honestly say that the IDP reflects their priorities? Can we say the budget being passed is one that meets their needs? The capacity of municipalities to both facilitate and communicate these processes effectively is clearly under strain. The public participation process is at risk of losing its credibility and constitutional values unless we intervene decisively. So, what can we as the provincial government do? Honorable members, we cannot allow the IDP to become just another tick box or document stored away in municipal offices. It must be a living, breathing reflection of the people's voice and vision. Let us act now, not only to restore
member, your time is up.
Not only to restore faith in the process, but to ensure that the development in the Western Cape is truly people-driven.
Thank you very much, honourable member.
And paperwork and not paperwork.
Thank you, member.
Thank
I
you,
recognise the Democratic Alliance. Order, members. Honourable member, there is a member on the floor. Please contain yourself, members. Please proceed, Member Brian.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Speaker. Earlier this week, the coastal community of Gordons Bay welcomed a rather unexpected guest, a southern elephant seal spotted ambling along Sir Lowry's Pass Road, inspecting the traffic, and, if reports are to be believed, eyeing out the local KFC with great interest. Deputy Speaker, Acting Deputy Speaker, you may be interested to know that this enigmatic visitor is not a native to our shores. Southern elephant seals typically call the cold coasts of Antarctica and South Georgia home, not the Helderberg. And one can only guess why he was so keen to come ashore. Perhaps he was in search of a quiet beach, a mate, or perhaps just some well-salted slap chips. Fortunately, this southern sojourner was found in good health, and I commend the swift action of the SPCA, law enforcement, and the City of Cape Town for ensuring the safety of both our wayward traveller and the public. Speaker, as of this morning, I've been informed that this chunky fellow has continued his journey to Simonstown and has acquired the name Gordy along the way. The SPCA has confirmed that his new location poses no risk to himself or the public, and he's away from roads and is resting in good health. It's heartening that when an elephant seal shows up in a residential suburb in Cape Town, local South Africans still respond with humor, kindness, and a touch of curiosity. In the meantime, our seafaring heavyweight is in good hands, and I hope that soon he will find his way home. Here he is. We only have a black and white picture, but he's quite unique. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the Economic Freedom Fighters. The EFF. I recognize the NCC. Order members, please proceed. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the NCC rises today with the good news received from President Cyril Ramaphosa in his keynote address delivered on the 27th of May at the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium in Sensory City. Speaker, the President announced that the government will spend in excess of 1 trillion rand on infrastructure development in the next 3 years. Now, Speaker, the Democratic Alliance is well aware of the housing list of 1994 that disappeared on their system under their watch. Nevertheless, the housing backlog in the Western Cape, we are aware that there is more than 600,000 poor people on the housing waiting list. This development will surely go far in addressing the infrastructure nightmare in the Western Cape, not to mention the apartheid schooling infrastructure that is already starting to crumble. Speaker, with this money, we need more schools, we need art centers, we need skill centers, we need proper rehabilitation centers, we need better sporting facilities, we need community centers where social cohesion can be fostered. Speaker, at this moment, we don't need infrastructure that draws on tourism. Tourism don't work in our communities. What we do need is, we need infrastructure that will give us survival, infrastructure to live a decent life. As the NCC, we plead to the President to address the compensation of the forceful removals and speak to the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape to compensate the victims of the forceful removals by building a totally new city for the families who are still waiting to be compensated. Speaker, in 2007, the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People was signed, and it speaks clearly on the ownership and the rights of land and other rights. Those rights has never been recognized by the government. And as the NCC, we hope that the money will go towards in addressing the issues since our forefathers and foresisters and mothers and everything that was in the forefront were forcefully removed by the National Party, now known as the Democratic Alliance.
Please conclude, member. Thank you very much. I recognize the African National Congress.
We know the reported crime reductions in Q4 and acknowledge the efforts of the police in the Western Cape under the leadership of Advocate Particular. Despite that, I make no apology when I say we will not be misled by the bourgeois media claim which seeks to appease international market forces that the crime reduction was significant. The bourgeois media has once again spun a deceptive tale, one that serves the interests of international capitalist market forces while ignoring the brutal reality working class communities enjoy daily. They package crime stats as progress when in fact the lived experience of the working class tells a far more painful story. Violence, poverty, lawlessness, entrenched in black working class communities, they are not coincident, as Rupert also admitted, suggesting that the DA run Western Cape is a crime-ridden province. Our analysis remains as urgent and correct as ever. Thus, I maintain argument that crime in the Western Cape, and in particular in Cape Town, is not just a policing issue. It is a direct product of deep-rooted systematic crisis of chronic underdevelopment. Unemployment, landlessness, squatter camps, and so on are breeding ground of crime in the Western Cape. The day's obsession with market forces and their blatant neglect of black working class has created what we call a tale of two cities, one safe and privileged on the one hand, and the other violent and abandoned on the other hand. Those of us who have good habit of reading the report will tell you that nearly every major crime category and features in 98% of the national top 30 here in this province. This is not progress, but a crisis. From sexual offenses, rape, assault, murder, attempted murder, carjacking. Details you missed are that on drugs-related cases alone, 23 of the top 30 police stations are in this province. These are communities under siege, abandoned by a system designed to protect the privileged. I argue in this statement that this is not just a policing failure. It is a political and economic indictment of the DA's neoliberal project.
Please
the violence
conclude, member. Your time is up.
Of colonial land dispossession.
Thank you very much, honourable member. Please take your seat. Your time is up.
Governance prioritizes profit over.
Thank you, member Ntenso. Honourable members on my right, I do not need your assistance. I do have the assistance of the clock to ask the member to conclude. Can we please maintain the decorum of the House? I recognise the Democratic Alliance.
Acting Speaker, the Western Cape has never waited for solutions to be handed down from the national government. We have acted decisively, innovatively, and with the clear backing of our communities. In no area is this more evident than in crime prevention. Through the LEAP program, cutting-edge technology and community-driven initiatives, the Western Cape government and the City of Cape Town have pushed beyond their constitutional mandate to keep our residents safe and to save us from ANC failures. But while we step up, the national government steps back. The SAPS has fewer boots on the ground here than in any other province per capita. Intelligence structures are in shambles. Crucial units have collapsed. Community partnerships are undermined. In some cases, the very institution tasked with protecting our people has become part of the problem, fueling the violence with stolen firearms and compromised systems. Acting Speaker, the latest crime statistics show us the truth. When the province leads, lives are saved. But we cannot do this work with one hand tied behind our backs. It's about protection, not about power, but about people, the very people that you are claiming that you are representing. Devolution of policing is not a radical idea. It is a rational one grounded in our constitutional right to safety, service delivery, and accountability. The Western Cape has proven its capability. All we lack is the legal authority and resources that are possible. We are not asking, by the way, with a begging bowl. We are asserting the constitutional rights of our citizens in the Western Cape. If the national government cannot fulfill its duty, then it must make way for those who can. Let the Western Cape lead.
Your time
for devolution.
Thank you very much,
now.
honourable member. I recognise the Freedom Front Plus. Order, members. Honourable members, on my left. Please proceed, honourable member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, as was heard today, the construction of informal settlements on the increase in the Western Cape, far outpacing the ability of this government to provide formal housing opportunities. In addition to this challenge, we also have children living in these absolute dreadful conditions, surrounded by absolute poverty. Children are especially at higher risk of abuse and neglect, as confirmed also in a journal entitled Challenges Faced by Learners Who Live in Squatter Camps. As we enter this week of child protection, We are burdened with the pain of what happened to a little girl. Nelson Mandela once said, "Our children are our greatest treasure. They are our future. Those who abuse them tear at the fabric of our society and weaken our nation." Close quote. Madam Chair, I remain hopeful that we can change things around in the province. Children needs protection, and I hope that the Children's Commission that will eventually be appointed will have a greater mandate. We need to save children's lives, especially those who live in squatter camps, who live in informal settlements. And that is my appeal to this House today. That was our child, and all children of this province are our children. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize Al Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, as from Friday the 23rd to Sunday the 25th of May 2025, 26 murders and an additional 58 attempted murders occurred on the Cape Flats over these 3 days. In addition to this, there were 84 gang-related incidents, including 27 separate shooting incidents. Between September to 20 November 2024, 79 children have been killed on the Cape Flats, an area ridden with gang violence for years. The month of May, which is almost over, is known as Child Protection Month, highlighting the needs to protect all children. Again, this province has failed to protect the children on the Cape Flats and townships as they continue to become victims of gang violence, drug peddlers, physical and sexual abuse. Where are the police too busy spying on pro-Palestinian demonstrations and picketers? And the province blames the national police for inadequate resources and shortages of police. But one will see several police and private securities at peaceful demonstrations in support of Palestine, while the gangsters are enjoying a killing spree on the Cape Flats. Imagine if this has to happen in the leafy suburbs. The possession of illegal firearms increase while our communities continue to live in fear and local businesses are affected by gang violence. The National Assembly chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron's advocacy for a decentralized model to empower municipal and provincial governments is nothing more than the DA's ambition to secede the Western Cape from South Africa. What is needed is for the DA-run province to bring out all resources.
Please conclude, Honourable Member. Your time is up.
Like it does at anti-drug and pro-Palestinian marches.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, today is Ascension Day, a significant day in Christianity. It celebrates the bodily ascension of Jesus Christ into heaven, where he is seated at the right hand of God the Father. Ascension Day is a fundamental part of the Easter season. It is not a standalone, for it completes the church calendar of Lent, Holy Week, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and his ascension. This day celebrates the conclusion of the Easter season. Christians celebrate the divine nature of Jesus Christ and hold fast to the strong traditions that mark the significance of Ascension Day. A diverse range of Christian denominations celebrates its relevance to the Easter season. Madam Chair, the removal of Ascension Day from the South African calendar in 1994 robs the Christian community of this essential holy day. This day calls for the celebration by all Christian congregations with hymns, prayers, sermons in praise of our Redeemer. The ACDP calls for a statement of this day, It called for this day to be added to the calendar by the national government. We're asking the DA government to be sensitive to Christians and grant them leave or time off when they need to go to church or pray. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the Good Party. The Good Party. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I remember as a small boy, I was standing on the greens of Fan Court and I was watching Ernie Els and Tiger Woods putting in the dark, sharing the President's Cup for the first time in the history. That was a moment that left a lasting impression on me. It was not about golf, but it was about the spirit of sport, about unity, and the world turning its eyes to the town that I called home. Fast forward to the past weekend, Speaker. As I drove into George, I was not greeted by golfers this time, but by more than 2,000 runners from 46 countries participating in the George Mat by UTMB, an ultra marathon traversing the Outeniqua Mountains. For 52 weeks of the year, the Outeniquas lie still, watching over George. But this weekend, it came alive. It showcased its tenacity and beauty to the world. These athletes took on 160 kilometers, with the lady that won the women's race, Nicolette Griffioen, finishing in a time of 26 hours and 33 minutes. But this event was not about the runners. It was about so much more. It was about more than 300 local volunteers who gave their time, energy, knowledge, proudly displaying their love for George. At the finish line, traditional dancers welcomed the celebration of Africa Day. It reminded us that this was more than a race. It's a cultural showcase, a celebration of unity in diversity. It's a moment where the community, culture, and nature come together in harmony. Speaker, the George Mutt by UTMB is more than just an ultramarathon. It is a catalyst for economic growth. It brings tourism, jobs, and international exposure to our towns, supporting local businesses and fostering deep community pride. In a province where we celebrate diversity, natural beauty, and excellence, sport continues to cross boundaries, to
Please
unite
conclude,
communities,
Honourable Member.
and
Your
place
time is up.
George and the Western Cape firmly on the global
Thank
map.
you very much,
Thank you very
Honourable
much.
Member. That brings us to the end of statements. In terms of Rule 145(6), I now give one or more members of the executive present an opportunity to respond to member statements for not more than 5 minutes collectively. I see the Honourable Minister Lund.
I will try and respond in 2 minutes, but I do need to take time just at the beginning to wish you a very happy birthday for your birthday yesterday. As Chair, we are in Child Protection Week, and the Western Cape government has been celebrating Child Protection Month, and we call it a celebration because there's so many people that do an amazing work in trying to safeguard the most vulnerable in our province. However, it is a crisis that faces not just our province, but the country as well. And what I'm incredibly proud about is what this government is doing to safeguard the most vulnerable in our province, the children. And just yesterday, this cabinet of the Western Cape government adopted and accepted that we roll out swims across the Western Cape government, because that means we can track the interventions of every child that knocks on the door of the Western Cape government, and hopefully in the future on every single NGO, so that the ball doesn't get dropped in our services that we provide to those children. So we're not just all talking, we are putting this in action. And I want to thank the Premier and everybody that has worked on this, and we'll just see how the success in the rollout works. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister Lund. There is still some time left. I recognize Honourable Minister Maniak.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Speaker. I couldn't help but noticing, based on the statement by the Honourable Benson, yeah, couldn't help noticing that he, as we all know, is a member of the bourgeoisie, of course, masquerading as a revolutionary. And so it comes as no surprise to me that he knows so much about the bourgeois media. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister.
What
Order, members.
do you know about bourgeoisie when?
Members. Member Nkenso. Member Nkenso. Order, member. There is a hand. Is that a point of order? Member Syed, please
On a
proceed.
point of order, Honorable Chairperson, the Honorable Minister is casting aspersions because to say masquerade is similar to how I was cautioned by the Deputy Speaker when I was speaking about member Christians. This is casting an aspersion to say that he masquerades as a revolutionary. That is casting an aspersion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Syed. We will revert to Hansard and revert back. Honorable Stoffels, you had your hand up.
Imagine.
Order, members.
Imagine what Hansard.
Dankie, Speaker. Speaker, ek wil net allude on die toespraak van member Murray in terme van die
Member Stoffel, is dit dis nie 'n punt van orde nie? Kan jy asseblief u sitplek inneem? Dis nie 'n punt van orde nie, member. It's not a point of order.
Speaker, ek was op die minute wat u gegee het as enige een iets wil sê.
Now, members, the rules. Members, order. Order, members.
We are ministers.
Order, members. Member, please switch off your mic. Thank you very much. Just wanted to say that the rules makes provision for members of the executive in terms of rule 145.6. Thank you very much, member. Order, members. I see member Walters, you had your hand up. Is there a point of order, member?
Chair, I'm happy with your ruling. I wanted
Thank you very
to.
much. Member against.
No, thank you very much. No, Chair, I raised my hand because I was concerned the person who's heading our education does not understand classes in society. In part, what it means to be a bourgeois and who's a bourgeois and who's... So that person is responsible for our education in the province. Yet,
That is not a point of order.
Of class.
Please take your seat, member. Thank you very much. I am not going to entertain any further points of order on this matter, members. There is still some time left. Order, members. There are still some time left for members of the executive. Please go ahead, Premier.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. A number of, well, maybe first of all, the Honourable Benson does seem to protest with too much. I think bourgeoisie was a nerve. But can I say that in the absence of the Honourable Marais, as she is in Saldanha Bay at the moment, with the announcement now of the sentencing in the Justin Smith case, and in her absence, and a number of members have raised issues specifically about crime linked to children, crime in general, and so I wanted to just perhaps reply on the crime stats. This is the crime stats, and of course, we need time to work through this, and obviously I presume the Standing Committee is going to do it. But if I look at quarter 2, 3, and 4, each of those quarters I saw a reduction in murder, 4% in quarter 4, 7.9% in quarter 3, and 8.7% in quarter 2. That bodes well, but what we really need to do in this House is we need to agree that it doesn't matter which political party you come from. We have to deal with crime in our province, no matter what. I mean, we always use apex statuses on murder, but quite frankly, I mean, if you look at these statistics on drug-related crime, there are 30 police stations with drug-related crimes. Only 5 of them are in another province. Every single other one of those crime-related crimes to drugs is in this province. Number 1, Mitchell's Plain. Number 2, Cape Town Central. Number 3, Delft. Number 4, Kraaifontein. Number 5, Hermanus. Then Lentegeur. Then Steenberg. Then Gugulethu. Then Khayelitsha. Then Worcester. Then Strand. Then Kleinpay. Then Manenberg. And so it goes on. And quite frankly, whether it's murder, drug-related crime, gangsterism, and what's happening to our kids, it is absolutely unacceptable. And I want to make a call to every political party in this House that we actually need to stand together. Let's work out a plan, because the current system is not working. The policing system is not working. The criminal justice system is not working. The courts are not working. And we actually,
And
I
the
mean, we
1
call for
billion did not
devolution of
work.
power.
Please take your seat, Honorable Premier. Honorable members on my left. Honorable Genso, you are now in contravention of the rules. Can you please
Also
contain
add,
yourself?
the 1 billion of safety plan did not work.
Can you please mute the member online? Members, please, members. Thank you very much. Honorable Premier, please proceed.
Thank you very much. So we've heard for devolution, but I'm not saying that that's the ultimate solution. We must devolve some of those powers, and we need to get agreement in this House that we need to push for this, because we cannot carry on
conclude,
the
Honorable
same
Premier.
system, national government running the policing and the criminal justice system. It is failing the citizens of this province. We have to do something
you very
differently, and devolution, I believe, is one of the answers.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. Order, members. Order, members. That is the end of member statements. In terms of Rule 151, all notices of motions by members are required to be delivered to the Secretary for placing it on the order paper. These motions have been duly submitted and published on the order paper below the line. Honourable members, we now move to motions without notice in terms of Rule 150. I would like to inform you that in terms of Standing Rule 150, pertaining to motions without notice, condolences and congratulatory were submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on the 27th of May 2025. Members are also reminded that motions without notice pertaining to congratulatory and condolence will not be allowed in the sitting that have not been processed by the Programming Authority. I have been informed that in the Programming Authority meeting of the 27th of May 2025, political parties did submit the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and who had wished to move a motion without notice in the sitting of the House. I will therefore, just for noting and for the purpose of the minutes, call out the honourable members' names who have accordingly been submitted and have been approved by the Programming Authority. The following members' motions have been approved by the Programming Authority as follows. The Honourable L. van Wyk, the Honourable L. van Wyk, Honourable M. Boyson, Honourable B.M. van Minnen, Honourable B.M. van Minnen, Honourable B.M. van Minnen, Honourable N.P. Masipa, Honourable P. Johnson, Honourable M.K. Syed, Honourable R. Windvogel, Honourable A.P. Barnes, and the Honourable P.Z. Lekker. I now put the motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections, honourable members? No objections. Agreed to. The motions will appear in the minutes of proceedings and enhanced in each individual member's name as if that member had read them aloud. I will now afford the opportunity to members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule 152D, and this could also include motions without notice that were not approved in the Programming Authority meeting. Members are reminded that the 30 minutes as per Standing Rule 152D will start now. I recognize the Honorable Brinkhuis.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Al Jamaa, I move without notice, and I note that on a farm known as Nantes on the R45 in Paarl, in the Drakensberg municipality, farm dwellers are living under shocking conditions. I further move and note that the 7 families are fenced in on their portion of the farm and forced to use a narrow alley to enter and exit the property. I further move and recognizes that the families have waged a 3-year battle for their right to clean water, refuge removal, and for the removal of the fence. I further move and recognize that long, uneven, and narrow alley is causing great harm to the lives of the families. I further move and acknowledge that under such conditions, the families are unable to park their vehicles on the precinct and their dwellings, and neither can emergency vehicles enter the property. Honorable Speaker, I further move and acknowledges that this narrow alley gets flooded during winter and prevents children from going to school as they cannot access transport. I further move and note that the elderly, sick, and people with disabilities often miss their hospital appointments as they find the walk down the alley too challenging, especially during winter. I further note and call on the House to condemn the farm owner for violating the human rights of these families. I so move. Thank you, Speaker.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honorable Nkensu.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move without notice that the House knows today's official opening of Central Lane from Chris Hani to Cape Town Station by Minister Babakhrisi and her Deputy Minister Hlengwa. The launch follows extensive upgrades to the Central Lane and the station. The Central Lane is one of the largest commuter rail corridors in the city. This will certainly enhance public transport, boost economic activities, and improve the daily commutes. However, we maintain our position that there should be public consultation on a service level plan between PRASA and the City of Cape Town. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Order, members.
This is Honorable Member.
Order, member, please switch off your mic. Is there a point of order, member?
Well, Chair, I just wanted to be, maybe I think I was focusing on the email. Is it,
What is your point of
did
order?
I hear, no, it's not a point of order. Did I hear correctly that the Honorable Chief of the Majority Party just objected to that particular
Member,
motion?
that is not a point of order.
No, I
Please
just
take your
wanted
seat.
to know if I heard
There
it
is an
correctly.
objection. Order, members. Order, members on both sides of the House. Can I also ask the whips of the parties to please contain yourself and set the example, please? There is an objection and the motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honorable Lecker.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move without notice that the House notes with concern the multi-vehicle collision at the intersection of Spine Road and Merridale Road in Mitchell's Plain, which left 12 learners from various schools in Mitchell's Plain injured. Notes further that the accident involved 7 vehicles, including 2 taxis and an unlicensed scholar transport vehicle with no professional driving permit. Acknowledges that this incident reflects a wider crisis of unregulated and unsafe scholar transport across the province and calls on the Western Cape government to urgently review and strengthen enforcement of safety protocols for scholar transport, including the vetting of drivers and roadworthiness of vehicles to ensure that no child's life is put at risk on their way to school. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objection. Agreed to. There is an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper, duly noted and recorded. Thank you very much, Honourable Members. I recognize the Honourable Ngensu.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move without notice that the House knows the provisional withdrawal of 1 billion tender fraud case against former DA MMC Malusi Boy and his co-accused. Notes further the NPA's confirmation that the police have discovered new evidence and charges have only been withdrawn pending finalization of investigation. Calls for a thorough, independent investigation and swift reinstatement of charges, and to respond to a letter written by the ANC and its alliance partners, in particular the SACP, calling on the president to sign a proclamation for the SIU to probe corruption and networks and trends in the city of Cape Town's housing tenders and also solid waste management. I so move.
I see the Honorable Nkondlo.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Member Nkondlo, my apologies. I recognize the Honorable Barnes.
Okay.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes the sentencing of Jocelyn Smith's mother, Kelly Smith, Jaco Napoles, and Stefano van Rijn. The trio have been handed life sentences for the disappearance of the child. We welcome the imposition of the maximum penalty against the convicted. The trauma inflicted on the family and the broader community by this heinous crime is far too great. We urge the legislature to strengthen laws and community partnership aimed at preventing child trafficking and abuse, and call for continued support to victims and swift justice in similar cases. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved? There's no objections. Agreed to. I again recognize the Honorable Barnes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes with deep concern and sadness the attack on the Gift of the Givers vehicle in Knysna. While the organization was assisting with the Concordia community water during a severe water crisis, apologizes unreservedly to the Gift of the Givers and the people of the Western Cape for the Del Probable Act, condemns any form of violence against humanitarian workers, and encourages Gift of the Givers to continue their critical and compassionate work across the Western Cape, South Africa and beyond. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved? There's no objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honorable Lecker. Honorable Lecker, are you online? I recognize the
Deputy
Honorable.
Speaker. Yes.
I recognize the Honorable Lecker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Welcome back again. I move that the House notes with dismay the arrest of 2 City of Cape Town law enforcement officers for kidnapping and extorting a man in Khayelitsha. Notes further that the officers allegedly demanded a ransom after unlawfully detaining the victim under the pretext of checking his asylum document. Condemns this criminal abuse of authority in the strongest possible terms and calls on the provincial government and the city to clean out corruption within enforcement units and restore community trust. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognize the Honorable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes with deep concern and strongly condemns the racist remarks made by Councillor J. Miller of Cape Exit against Cape Townians from the Eastern Cape, describing them as labor migrants who should be ejected from Cape Town. Notes further that such xenophobic, racist, and divisive statements were made in this House and province by DA leader Helen Zille and former Freedom Front Plus MPL Peter Mare, who both called as refugees from the Eastern Cape and foreigners from Zimbabwe, respectively. Call on this House to attend to the growing cases of blatant and overt racism in the city of Cape Town public spaces such as schools, restaurants, worse now in a council chamber that is supposed to hold the supreme law of the country, the Constitution and Bill of Rights. These racial hate incidents are spreading through the province with recent attack of black young females in Beaufort West by a white male. Citizens of this province must refuse to be taken back to the times of racial segregation and apartheid and ask the Premier to call an inquest on racism in this province as a way of recommitting his government to the constitutional principle that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and to guarantee the human rights of all citizens. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? These objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Order, members. I now again recognize the Honorable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Speaker. The racists are expected to reject. I move without notice that the House notes the highlight
Deputy
cover
Speaker.
up that is
Honorable
currently
members,
taking place in
Honorable
the
members,
city of Cape
Member
Town.
Nkondlo.
Yes, Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
May I request that you start over? I was unable to hear anything, but before we proceed, honorable members, honorable members, we are nearing the end of today's sitting. I took up the seat, honorable members, honorable Barnes. Honorable members, I deliberately took up the seat, and I wish to thank Member Kaiser Philander, as I was aiming to deliver a ruling based on the sitting from 22 May and the order that was at the point of order raised by the Minister of Health and Wellness. That particular member is not in the House. The table staff will note that the member has since left the chamber and the matter will stand over until the next sitting. But it's very vital that we ultimately keep the decorum of this House and that we do not shout over each other and we do not shout any terms that is deemed to be parliamentary, unparliamentary. I have noted there was two persons that raised their hand. I see the Chief Whip.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Nkondlo is in violation of Rule 59, and Honourable Nkondlo needs to withdraw. She cannot refer to members on your right as racist.
Honourable Nkondlo, I did not hear that specifically because there was a number of interjections and a running commentary that proceeded. If you have stated that, I will request that you withdraw and then proceed with your...
Deputy Speaker, I'm rising on a point of order. There's no way Member Nkondlo will withdraw while someone tells me in my face that I'm a racist. It started there, and then suddenly only Member Nkondlo is heard. This is unfair.
That was the point of order, members.
You must start withdraw.
I'm in the chair.
I'm willing to leave this chamber.
Can you take your
Racist
seat?
cannot be a one-sided thing, never.
I'm in the chair. I've noted the Chief Whip, Member Barnes, I've noted the Chief Whip rising on a point of order, indicating that a comment was made. I then put it to Member Nkondlo, if that particular remark was made, to withdraw. If there's any other member that have highlighted a member indicating such a comment, I would then also request that that member withdraw accordingly. Member Walters?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I did call Member Van Vogel and Member Barnes racist. I withdraw that fully.
Thank you so much, Member Walters. Member Nkondlo, I'll give over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes the highlights cover up that is currently
Member
taking place in the
Nkondlo?
city of Cape Town.
Member
Yes,
Nkondlo?
Deputy Speaker. Yes, Deputy Speaker.
I have indicated that if you have said that word, referring to a other member, if you are that you should withdraw prior to you commencing with your motion without notice.
Deputy Speaker, as you had said, as the person who is the Speaker of the House chairing the sessions, you have not had me saying such, and therefore you may, I'm sure, listen to Hansard and make your ruling. It can't be that the chief whip of the ruling party stands up and tells you how to rule on members. It can't work like that.
Hence, I wanted to ask you and give you the opportunity. So let me ask for the record. Member Nkondlo, did you
Can I
refer to
proceed?
another member in the House as a racist?
I didn't refer to any members. I said those that would reject are racists. That's what I said. So I didn't refer to any member.
I take your input. I will then refer to Hansard and revert back to the House. Members, we will proceed. Member Nkondlo.
Can I proceed?
Premier, the member indicated to me that she has not said that. I will then interrogate Hansard. Okay, you may proceed.
Deputy Speaker, it is not about a member on Cornlaw. It is what I witnessed myself, the Honourable Vin Vogel, pointing to a member on the side floor saying exactly the same thing. Now, we cannot get to that stage. We need to be honourable members. I've heard the withdrawal on the one side. I expect the withdrawal on the other side.
Before we proceed, I took the point of order from the Chief Whip. I then approached Member Nkondlo. I then took another order from Member Barnes, and I noted the input from Honourable Walters. I will again put it to Member Vin Vogel at this stage before we carry on with Member Nkondlo. Member Vin Vogel, did you utter those words? Then I will humbly request that you then withdraw those words. Let me request that Member Vin Vogel then vacate the chamber. Member Nkondlo, you may proceed.
Order, Deputy Speaker.
Member Nkondlo, is it?
Deputy Speaker.
Member Leka, you may proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on a point of order, Deputy Speaker, because you actually have flouted the rules and asked Member Nkondlo if she has said that. A reasonable question would have been, was she referring to any person in the House? I'm not sure why you asked the way in which you have asked, but it is wrong and you are setting a wrong precedence. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Leka. We have a different interpretation, but I wanted to provide the member with an opportunity. Hence, I then posed a question in that particular way. I'm always open to further guidance. So let me state, members, a number of matters have been raised by members on this side of the aisle and on my left with regards to a comment that was made. I then approached members and requested that that particular matter be withdrawn. I've already made a ruling in this regard, and I won't then entertain further rulings in this regard, and I will refer to Hansard and revert back to the House if need be.
Maybe
We will
you
now
must sought
proceed.
guidance. You must sought guidance from the table staff, Deputy Speaker.
I've already sought guidance and I've made my ruling. The last matter that I will entertain, I see the hand of the Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to rise on a point of order, Rules 66(5), which says that a member who's aggrieved may not challenge a ruling in the House, which I believe the member is a rule the member is currently offending.
I have indicated now that I have already made my ruling. Member Nkondlo, you may proceed.
I move without notice that the House notes the highlight cover-up that is currently taking place in the city of Cape Town. The DA-led city of Cape Town is allegedly protecting a network of contractors and officials implicated in a 30 million irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. As a cover-up, Patricia van der Ross, MMC for Community Services and Health, was removed to contain the corruption scandal. We have cautioned the House regarding the DA misgovernance multiple times and their corruption. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice?
Objection.
These objections and the motion will be printed on the order paper. Members, it is extremely unfortunate that over the last 7 minutes, the House descended to what is deemed to be unacceptable in my view. However, as I've indicated, I will revert back to the House. We will examine the Hansard and we will then make appropriate rulings. We must always maintain the decorum of the House as honorable members. Having said that, that concludes the business of the day. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the city, from the sitting. The House is adjourned.